false history story and religious control dogma to further the political, economic, and world dominion agendas of the Roman Empire. They took the texts, they edited them, they contrived a story by putting bunches of them together, took out the ascension mechanics completely, twisted up the lines so you couldn't tell what, the Grail lines really even existed. And they did this to further the political objectives of Rome, which was to take over the world. Rome was being controlled by Illuminati, who were in contact with the Nibiruans, and another group of them were in contact with the Draconians. So literally, this has been an invasion every step of the way. So if I say, like right now, I hate to bother people and don't want to upset you or anything, but we're kind of like in the middle of an invasion, but don't worry about it. It's been going on for like thousands of years, but this is what it's all been moving toward, this time period. Okay, let's see. Where am I? Okay. Yeah, okay. The Council of Nicaea used edited distortions of genuine 10 AD Essene, Sumerian, Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Sanskrit, Tibetan, and remnant ancient Atlantean records to contrive their book, the canonized Bible, an intentional and malicious distortion of the true Essene Christian biblical texts. That's why people get mad at me, oh, you're against the Bible? I am not. In fact, one of me, way back there in the Christ period, helped to write the darn thing. I love the Bible. But what they call the Bible today, as I was growing up, when I first began to open a Bible and start to read, the first time I did, I actually threw it against the wall. There was a part of me, now I know what part, that rose up and just was so angry. That's not what it meant. Like certain things were twisted. They were supposed to set people free, but they were used to enslave them. It was like, how dare you take the holy teachings and do what you have done to them? This has been done here, and I will go head-to-head with any pope. And I'll say, what's more important to you? Covering up your lies from the last thousands of years that's been propagated through your thing? Or do you want to evolve your religion back to where it has a chance of being something pure? Because that's why I'll go out and I'll talk, not against the Bible, I'll talk for the Bible. And I'll try to motivate any Christian to try to find the truth that was in it and realize a whole bunch of that's been taken out. So don't let that book keep you from having your relationship to God the way you were intended. That's the message I carry. Yes?
You said that in 10 AD that was the last commission for speakers. Is that because the Guardians were disgusted with what was done to the Bible as well?
That was part of it. It wasn't the last time they tried. It was the last time that they attempted to put the books down in physical written form. There had been other attempts since that time of at least giving like little portions of it or oral tradition. But what was done then was the commission was to get a set of the Mahabharata books back, which was a big commission. They were like, literally all 12 plates were supposed to be involved, except one was still roaming around that we couldn't find, which was plate 11. But if you could access plate 12, you could pull the information that would have been on plate 11. So it was the last written commission was literally the three of us were commissioned, or the three people were commissioned to bring through the entire 590 volumes of the Mahabharata text. We didn't get to finish that. We only got, as you see, a very short amount of that done. We got the 15 minus 3 books were done. They're supposed to be 590 volumes. The books didn't really even compile one volume. So there was a lot more that we weren't able to finish in that time. Okay, anyway, I'm going to get back to this, so we're going to be here till midnight. Okay, where am I? This one? Yeah, all right. Yeah. Okay, the canonized Bible created by the Church of Rome Illuminati, and I'm not afraid to say that, the canonized Bible was created by the Church of Rome Illuminati in 325 AD. It became the control doctrine through which antichristic teachings, hidden within a veneer of edited, distorted, true Christ teachings, emerged under the guise of a false Christian pseudo-religious mass control dogma that was built upon the compulsory worship of false, externalized, wrathful God personifications and subjugation of women. The true Christianity, taught by the Essene Grail lines, and which had emerged in the pre-Jesus period through the ancient Emerald Covenant CDD plate founders' inner Christos teachings, went underground. The true Christian Grail lines were persecuted by the Illuminati dominion forces of the Roman Empire and competing Illuminati factions. Between 400 AD and 490 AD, another attempt at CDD plate translation was initiated among 3 speakers of the that is a race line, as we'll learn as we go into the human lineage and its genetic descendancy. Okay, wait, okay. Okay, and the Essene, Melchizedek Gray line in Persia, meaning the area is now called Jordan, Iraq, and Iran. Between 420 AD and 600 AD, competing factions of draconian agenda Illuminati repeatedly raided and waged tribal genocide against the Persian Gray lines, confiscating the original sacred Islamic Persian texts. The original Persian texts were edited, and select elements of them were combined with one version of the Nicene Essene biblical text distortions and with remnants of ancient Sumerian CDD plate translation distortions. This amalgamation of spiritual and historical text distortions became the falsified Islamic religion control dogma, featuring, like other text distortions, the antichristic subjugation of women and the responsibility of violent holy war in the worship of a vengeful, externalized God personification. So they did it to the Muslims too. This has been going on progressively since Atlantis. The false Nicene Bible religious control dogma was later adopted and further edited and distorted by a variety of competing Illuminati races, creating various false Christian political control dogma sects that became the various denominations of the falsified Christian religion. Since Atlantean times, Illuminati races have used this method of political manipulation through falsified spiritual doctrine to control and exploit masses of humans via propaganda, disinformation, and forced or coerced submission to falsified spiritual creeds. We have been spiritually raped on this planet, and it's about time we're ready to face it so we can do something about it. And that's what we're doing. That's why the teachings are being brought back again. The King Arthur legends and the Cathari of France. In 600 AD, another failed attempt at the CDD plate translation was initiated among the Azurta Arutas Celtic Druidic Grail line of England and Ireland, giving rise to the highly Illuminati distorted legends of King Arthur, the Knights of the Round Table, Merlin, and the Sword Excalibur, which were based upon Thoth Nibiru and Anunnaki, Archangel Michael Nephilim Anunnaki, and Knights Templar Illuminati distortions of genuine Grail line history from this period. We'll cover some of what that period, the Round Tables, because that's where we were trying to get back through the text on how to run the round tables so certain things could be done in the grids, so it wasn't all going to be saved, all the mess be saved for this time period once the stellar activation cycle happened. The whole King Arthur drama, just like the whole Christ drama and the bunch before it and after it, were about trying to prepare the grids for what was coming with the stellar activation cycle and to prepare the human races to make a Christos stand and just run the divine blueprint. Then they didn't have to stand against anybody, because the fallen angelic races could not win in their final conflict drama. If we could run the round tables and run our divine blueprint at a critical mass level, it would solve the whole thing. So even in the Arthur period, that's what it was all about. Okay? Almost done. In 1200 AD, another failed attempt at CDD plate translation was initiated among the Cathari Grail line. This is where the word Cathara comes from, for Cathara healing. There was two branches of Cathari. The originals were the Cathari, and they were a Gray line. There was another line that came up. It had to do with hybridization and the Illuminati races getting into that Gray line to try to get its coding. And they were the Cathari that are most usually referred to. They were the ones that wore black. Our guys wore white. And so when you read about French history and the Albigensian Crusade and those kind of things, they'll and read about the Cathari. When they talk about the ones that dressed in black, they weren't our guys. So it was initiated among the Cathari Grail lines of southern France. They were the descendants of the Jeshua Melchizedek Essene line. That's where they came from. The original Cathari of France came from the Jeshua Melchizedek Essene line. In 1244 AD, the Cathari was, all of them, not just, they got both the Illuminati version and the good guys, but in 1244 AD, the Cathari were systematically exterminated by the Church of Rome in the Albigensian Crusade. They were literally burned. They torched their villages and in Montsegur. And this has been going on all along. When we look at the history that we know about and they say, oh, these guys were attacking these guys, it was all about the Stargates, but most of the time the humans, the Illuminati, didn't even know. There were secret societies that had only a few top members that would have the connection with the fallen angelics. They would pass their information down to their flunkies, and there'd be circle, the point within the circle where the contact was happening. Reminds you of the channeling movement? And you'd have the inner circle, then the circle out there. And the further out you went in the circle, the less the people knew. They'd just be pointed in the direction by the next circle in. So this information that we've been progressively manipulated through this structure. In the Cathari, for example, we started out where we would have the original gray line Cathari. There was Illuminati races sent in that were actually part of the Christ drama. They had another Antichristos gray line coming out from the Christ drama period, and they interwove them together. And then they started secret societies. This is where Knights Templar turned into Freemasons and those kind of things. They were affiliated with the twisted group of the Cathari, and their extermination came later. Like the Knights Templar got wiped out because they got into it with the Catholic Church, and the Illuminatis were conflicting with each other. And I forget what the dates are, but they were basically, there was a big movement of them being destroyed. And then not too long later, the Freemasonry movement kind of surfaced and started its thing. And that's alive and kicking today. So anyway, CDD plates and the Templar quest in the New World. 1375 AD, a final attempt of oral CDD plate translation was initiated simultaneously on the North and South American continent among the American Seminole and Hopi Amerindian tribe Grail lines of Brua, Atlantis, and Lemurian descent, and among the Mua Lemurian descent, Mua Inca tribes of Peru, and the Alaskan Canadian Inuit Grail line tribes. They were also of Lemurian Mua descent. Various competing Illuminati-controlled native tribes systematically infiltrated and attempted to destroy the Grail line tribes, corrupting their original Christos oral traditions into various shamanistic control dogmas that featured worship of and astral and physical contact with various fallen angelic legions masquerading as gods and extraterrestrials. Illuminati attempts to repress or destroy the North and South American Grail line tribes and to compromise or obliterate new CDD plate oral translations culminated in the European Illuminati invasion of the New World, progressive genetic infiltration and near destruction of native Grail lines via forced marriage as rape or genocide, and the ultimate infiltration, suppression, and regulative containment of native cultures and belief systems. So if we wonder why Columbus discovered America, first of all, he didn't. But, I mean, he got here, but he certainly didn't discover it. This is the history, the dirty history that was hidden in the closet. You know, we hear about our founding fathers in America, you know, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, all those guys. They just love, we're taught to love these people. How many of them were Freemasons? Most of them. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that I haven't got any death threats yet. Because I've been talking about this part of it for a while. And I was at one point, a group of Freemasons, very, very active, you know, like their 33rd degree level type guys, were calling me very interested in my work. You know, would I like to join them? When I found out what they were, I said, no, thank you. You know, this was before we got the information on plugging them into the history and what they evolved from. So it's really interesting to see. This is all right in our faces. I mean, we've lived this timeline up to now, and this is what's brought us here, but it's not what we learn in school. You know, CDD plates in the contemporary drama. In the 1600s, stolen CDD plate disc 12 was recovered by the Azoite Guardian races via the Cathari descendant Grail lines of France. In November 1999, CDD plate disc 11 was recovered by the Azorites from a contemporary Illuminati Freemason Paraclete descent family in Scotland, England, which means they were between, you know, the family was in Scotland and England, and I think a bit more in Ireland too. But it was like being passed on. These things would be held within family lines, those precious possessions that you'd kill for, and they would literally pass them through. And there'd be one child usually chosen from the time of birth as that would be the one that would be told the secret knowledge, and that child would be raised and cultivated to be the protector of that knowledge, and they would literally die for it. And this is how they would, like certain sacred objects or stolen objects, they would literally keep in the family lines for thousands of years. Okay? The 12 CDD plates are presently in the protective joint custody of the Iani Indigo Grail line races of Inner Earth and the Maharaji and Azurite races of Ceres B. The 12 signet shields presently remain buried on Earth in Guardian secured locations. Actually, one of them has been unearthed, and I hear it's in a museum somewhere in Egypt, stuck in the back room. They don't know what it is. Unfortunately, it's not one of the higher ones that we have to have in order to, you know, to balance the grids or anything. But these are objects that there's going to come a time when when it's time, and it probably won't be before 2017. It might be after that, but I don't think so. It might be sooner. When there will be verification at some point given, where there will be contact. But the Guardian races won't be the first ones to make contact, because right now to start World War III in the skies above us, because the fallen angelics would literally wage war if Guardians attempted to come in and warn people. That's why they're talking to people this way, trying to get the information in. These grids have been controlled here since the Atlantean period, 25,500 BC, by competing Anunnaki and Draconian forces that use their Illuminati people hybrids here to direct their agendas. So right now, the proof isn't here yet. Well, it is, but it can't be found yet, because if they give it to us to find, the other ones will scrabble to find it too, and they tend to be the ones that own property and run governments and stuff. So if they tell us, like, it's over here, and we try to go get something, it'll be gone by the time we get there, and it'll be in the wrong hands. But there will be a time. There's a bunch of stuff hidden in France, I know that, in the Montsegur region, and there's other places like that. The Wingmakers thing in, where's that? New Mexico, I believe. We just did a whole section on that for the Voyages 2 book. There is a CDD plate shield also hidden in that site. So they're starting to find evidence of what we're talking about, but there is more evidence eventually that will be brought in by the Maharaji, because the Maharaji races of Siriuspi will be the ones to initiate contact, as they always were. They're blue humans. They're human, looking. They look like humans, but they're taller, and their skin is pale blue. So they were a version, another evolutionary path of the human imprint that was in density 2. So the CDD plate translations are again being reintroduced by 3 Emerald Covenant speakers. And boy, this has been tough this time. The 3 speakers, the ones that held the original commissions, like 2 of them went down, and they were literally one was under draconian possession, and the other one they don't even know, what status. So the contracts were again reassigned. They'd do this in any of the time frames. If one of the the persons got possessed from the astral level or something, they couldn't pull information from the CDD plate, so it would be transferred to a backup, and that's what's been done this time with one of them. And CDD plate speaker 3 won't be speaking for a while. Speaker 2, who was speaker 1 before, is Az, and we are working together. I was speaker 1 this time. I was speaker 3 last time, so we're kind of playing roles. Now, as far as probably wondering, okay, who is Joshua? Jesus. He was, I believe he was speaker 2 the last time. Yeah, he was speaker 2. He's not coming in as a speaker in this round. He's going to birth in as an infant. Now, you believe me, if you see a holographic insert of Christ coming down on a cloud saying, "Follow me," please don't. Because this is a technology that's being used by the fallen angelic matrices to lead you right through portals where you can get totally incinerated. Your bodies will be incinerated, and they can suck your consciousness into Phantom Matrix. Now, the real Jeshua, Jesus, is reincarnating back here. He was due to come in 2012 with the full opening of the Halls of Mente stargates. His birth was meant to trigger it because he carries the frequency in his, in his template that would trigger that. But we'll talk about, as we progress through this workshop, we will talk about, there has been an expedition of the original Amente opening schedule. 2012 was supposed to be the year when the Halls of Amente fully opened. We had time to, wake up and get functional until that happened, because of the crisis intervention missions that have had to be done to stop pole shift before 2008 because of the fallen angelic races. Right now, it's going to be between 2003 and 2006, instead of 2012, that the Halls of Mente stargates open. That means this planet is going to go through a frequency rush like it hasn't seen in ages. It means our DNA is going to do that too. This is what we're preparing for. Whenever, between 2003 and 2006, whenever it is, and that will be determined by the planetary grids, the Guardian races will literally try to hold it off as long as possible to give the Earth grids time to balance those frequencies so it doesn't kick up things like volcanoes and all that kind of stuff. But when it's time for the Halls of Amente to trigger open, that is when Jeshua is coming back. That is when the second coming of the person who is Jesus is taking place. And he is not coming back as a holographic insert. He's not coming back as an adult. He's coming back in infant form. And when he's 33 years old, he will begin his conscious mission. So just so you know what the the agendas are with there, because there's going to be a lot of trickery done with the image of Christ, with the image of Mary, and all sorts of different, Mohammed. It depends on what country you live in, what images they're going to give you. But we've been set up for this for a long time. Metagorgy. I've heard that one. Yeah, I'd have to find out. I'd have to trace the matrix. But basically what you're having here, most of the people that are seeing visions of Mary or having, what's that other guy, Maitreya? Like Lord Maitreya, these guys. Anybody that has to put Lord in front of their name? I tell you, Jesus didn't call himself Lord Jesus. In fact, the person who was Jesus isn't too happy about what's been done in his name through the Bible and the lies that have been told. You have to be really careful with beings out there on the planet that call themselves Lord this, that, or the other thing, because that's a title that's meant to put you in subservience. It's like going around saying, I'm a doctor. Hi, you're just a person. You know what I mean? I mean, fine, be a doctor. If you're a master, fine, be a master. But most masters will not wear it on their sleeve, and they will not go around saying, call me Lord. I'm Lord Maitreya. Don't forget it. This kind of stuff. These are cues to the fact that you're dealing with something that's not quite on the up and up as far as the Christos stuff goes. So it helps to pay attention to those things. Yes?
Do we have a copy of these notes?
Yeah. This is going to, like the new stuff. You actually have this, or most of this, is in... it's in there in different form, so I will give you a copy of this. It's kind of like in its summarized form, so you don't have to go digging for it. So I'll give you a copy of that. There's also a bunch of new stuff coming that has to do with some of the stuff that was given in Cathara, in the Cathara workshop that was new stuff, and some things that were in the Voyagers 2 new material, the second edition new material. Some of the pertinent stuff in that is going to be added to this as well. So it's really funny. The information is coming and being given to us so fast that it's like, where it ends up, we never have time to try to reformat anything. It's just we add it as it goes. Like these are going to have supplements upon supplements. By next year this time, anybody that gets this book will have the option of probably buying 5 supplements to it at that point, or maybe we'll have another book at that point. I don't know, but there's never time to sit down and organize the data into like a specific course or anything. It's literally, it's given to us, we stick it in there, then the next level is given to us, and then some of it we try to get into the Voyagers book. So I apologize if it's hard to keep track of all of the data. It's like, well, what do I buy? Do I buy the Voyagers book, or do I buy a piece of it's in all of it, And between the books and products that we have available, they all have a part of it. The most important ones are Cathara, because it teaches you about your own personal inner Templar stuff that you really need to know if you're going to begin to take it any higher. This one teaches you about the big drama that's happening and about running round tables, which is how to help the big drama in a peaceful, loving way. And Voyagers 2 tells you some of the stuff that's not in there or only summarized in there. Tells you, like, goes through Atlantis and some of the basic stuff of Atlantis and back 550 million years to the fall from Tara to Earth. So there's a bunch of stuff in there that's not anyplace else. And there's the new stuff on the trade centers and that kind of thing, because some of that's going to be in here, but I can't put the whole thing, or I'd be putting the whole what's in Voyagers Volume 2, I'd be sticking it all in there, and it's already there, plus it'd be copyright infringement, because that's the publisher's book, at this point. So, I think I need a drink. Yeah, what time is it? You're late. Okay. So, well, that was an introduction, just kind of like... it was, really. I didn't... Oh, gee, there was like 6 other things I wanted to get to. But we can get to those tomorrow. I just want to give you a real quick rundown on some of the stuff we're going to cover really fast. We're going to cover the Grail Line races, what are angels, archangels, all that stuff. We're going to cover that. We're going to cover something called the cycle of the rounds, the evolutionary blueprint of the angelic human race. We're going to talk about DNA and fire letters, the original human commission, or human mission on Earth, the planetary divine blueprint, signet stargates, DNA, tribal shield, incarnational 12 cycles, rainbow roundtables, and 12 tribes and the songs. Then we're going to get into, that's only like halfway through tomorrow morning, oh boy. Then we're going to get into doing what we call clinics, where now some of you that have taken the Cathara have already started to do these things. We're going to do tribal shield activation, we're going to do Merkaba salutations, and then we're going to take that into running a Maharata roundtable. A Maharata roundtable is running just the D12 currents. As we progress, we learn to run a rainbow round table, which is running the primal light and sound fields as well as the Mahabharata current, and they're more powerful. Okay, then we're going to get into Forbidden History 1, Atlantis, maps, the Leviathan, which are the Illuminati creation, the Atlantean conspiracy. We're getting into the Nibirian data crystal grid at Stonehenge, and the fact that we just recoded that grid to the divine blueprint, and they're not too happy about it on Nibiru. We'll talk about the King Arthur Grail line. Forbidden History 2 is going to get into England, Ireland, and Scotland, the checkerboard curse, and the Nibiruan and Amente reversals in the planetary grids. We're going to talk about the crop circle war a little bit, the crop circles that are popping up. You're watching the war on the ground. Crop circles, if we go back to the sciences that we learn in Kathara, where we're using symbol codes as the carriers of mathematical programs that directly interface with the scalar templates of our DNA, well, it works the same on the planetary grids. These crop circles are mathematical programs, and they're showing various competing forces trying to get control of very specific grid lines that they're placed on. They also can serve as mind control broadcasting stations for the people who live in the areas. So if you're around crop circles, use your Maharic seal. If you ever go to walk around one, use your Maharic seal, because in fact, there's only one crop circle that our guys actually claimed to do, and they did it to counteract what one of the Anunnaki groups had done when we were going to finish clearing the Nibiruan grid in England this past summer. And there was one that appeared right before we were due to come, and they had claimed, I don't even have a picture of that with us, that particular one.
It's on the front cover.
Yeah, a little version, but I don't have the big one. Yeah, this thing, it doesn't look like a real one, though. You can hold it up. On the front cover there, that's the one they claimed, our guys claimed. They had done that in the grid up by Milk Hill in England, where Stargate 11 is located, where we had gone to run a round table to clear the Nibirian dotted crystal grid checkerboard matrix imprint out of it. And it had appeared like a couple of days or whatever before we came, and there was two other ones down in the field below that had been the Anunnaki ones that were trying to mess with the grids that we were trying to clear. So it was really funny. So we'll go from that into the checkerboard DNA. We'll talk about gene mapping, what's happening here, and they're telling you about how they've just mapped the human gene code, like the genome. Good luck. There's some things that are missing that they don't know about, and it will probably surprise them when they start to reactivate in some people. We'll talk about death by densification and the real crucifixion, which has to do with our axiotonal lines in our body and what has been done to them through this checkerboard mutation as it comes through the human DNA. And we're going to talk about some of the additional stuff. This will be toward the end of the workshop. The additional stuff that's being given to me on the Canadian grids, the turnstile control matrices that are run by the Archangel Michael matrix people, which are, again, Andromi, Necromatin, Nephilim from Alpha Omega Centauri. That's where those guys are coming from. So we'll talk about that, and we'll wrap it all up into learning how to do a rainbow roundtable, combine it with Vecca code technologies, which will amplify the heck out of rainbow roundtables. It will allow us to do something called radial body healing on both ourselves and our planet. The radial body is a part of our anatomy as a person that we talked about in Kathara. It's also a part of the planetary anatomy, and it's the part that holds the memory matrix. If there are distortions in the radial body, there will be race distortions. In planetary radial body, there will be distortions in the race memory complexes. The reason why we don't remember who we are is because our own radial bodies are distorted because of our template distortions that come through the DNA, and the same thing on the planetary level. And what we are doing with the work that we're doing now is we are resetting the original divine blueprint and clearing the radial body levels of the planetary grids. So it will progressively help us to get our memory back, and it will help to restore the natural memory matrix to this planet, because what's been happening since 25,500 BC is this planet's Merkaba has been plugged into Nibiru in order to send its memory matrix down here. So when the Anunnaki come back and say, hi, we're your creator gods, we'll say, okay. Read some of the work by some of the other people investigating Anunnaki. They're priming us for a comeback where we think that we are the children of the Anunnaki races, and they have manipulated our gene code where through genetic testing as it's done now, we would actually look like who we were, except for those who are turning their DNA back on. So we'll talk about all that as we go along, and by the end of it we'll probably be exhausted, but we'll have a lot of hope, because it's not a dire situation, it's just an important one. As long as we pay attention, and what's so great about all of this, big old problem, right? But the solutions are simple, and each and every one of us makes a huge difference. And the difference is made as we heal ourselves. If we work to heal ourselves and restore our Christos imprint, we will do the same for the planet. Not everybody will want to do round tables or will want to teach Cathar or any of those things. We're beginning a new program called Dance of Life, which is the personal spiritual development program using the advanced mechanics, but in a very easily digestible, non-confrontational way. So people who want to teach this stuff to other people say, how in the heck do I talk to anybody about this? You know, half my friends like Archangel Michael, you know, yeah, that kind of thing. That's okay. If you're interested in teaching the Dance of Life program that I have to, they tell me I have to have translated by the end of February. I can hardly wait. We're introducing it in a workshop in March. And that is going to be something that each one of you can use if you want to for personal, you know, accelerating what you're already learning in Cathar and already learning here. But you can learn it and you can also easily teach it because it takes the confrontational parts that you're going to learn about here out of it, so you can talk to normal people that don't know about all this stuff. Okay, so it is a progressive program. I think I'm out of breath.
Oh, wait, no, you're not.
I'm not out of breath.
Right,
Ooh.
before we go home,
Here.
page 21.
Oh, I have to save breath for this. Yes, I did want to do that. That's the Maharata song? You got it in there? Okay. This is the Song of Lyra. This also was handed out in the Cathara manual things. It's Technique 13 in the Cathara manual. Okay. Now, which part are we doing here? Where are you? Okay, yeah. I'm used to seeing it the other way.
Got it with the phonetics written on it and everything, okay?
Oh, so this one throws me off, actually, the writing on it, because it's not structured.
This is the original, sorry.
I know. Do you have the other one?
No, this is the one that we use.
I'll just sing it off the top of my head because I know it that way better.
all right.
Yeah, it just breaks the different places, where when I reformatted it, I put it where the whole line that you would sing together strings out together. So it just,
I didn't get that page.
yeah, that's okay.
This is the original one we had.
Okay.
Right.
I know.
Anyway.
That's what I'd hard time.
This is just family negotiation.
Yeah, same song, just broken, like the lines are broken in different places, and I look at it and I said, oh boy, you know, wait a minute, it looks different when you see it in the other format. Okay, it doesn't matter, it says the same thing.
On 3 then. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll just go for it.
Okay.
Right, 1, 2, 3.
Maharaja Kumbai Vectors, Ashana in Evugayuni Bliam by Vectai, Maha Vectai, Unin Rayon Amor, Iste Unde Satrash Era, Patate Uma, Ashelam Traje Infetoe, Sharayu Veyakum Tana Tan, Sharayu Veyakum Tana Tan, Sharayu Veyakum Tan. If you get to a point where you learn that, like we would learn the words to it, and the English words are under it so you know what you're saying. When you learn that, this is the quickest way to pop up your Maharic shield. If you've done Maharic shield technologies at all before, it will respond to this song and instantly pull your shield up temporarily, which means it'll instantly, temporarily activate the D12 subharmonics in each of your DNA strands, and it will give you biofield clearing, like literally connected to your avatar level, and give you a clear current of connection. So if anything's trying to, you know, interface that you don't want there, it'll clear it out. So it's a good one to learn. You can learn it in the dream state too. If you learn it here, I have found myself very frequently when anything's trying to, let's say, intercept strand 4 in the dream state, and you know, trying to mess with me, or I'm processing things that are getting, intense. I will find myself singing this in the dream state, and it immediately clears it, and I wake up. Oh, neat! And I wake up remembering what the dream was, what the whole scenario was. So it's a very valuable tool for. It's like instantly anchoring your D12 rod of frequency, connecting you to your avatar and allowing, it's like activating your connection to source directly. It can also shift stuff. If you're in a position where something is intimidating to you, in the outer world even. If you learn the song, and just play with it. I hum it to myself all the time. It took me a while to get the words where I wasn't tripping over them, because it goes so fast in my head, and I try to get it out in my mouth and I lose the words. Play with it for a bit. If you learn it, it's a prayer song. It's a prayer to your own Christos, saying, "Come and be with me now, please." And it just, and it anchors those frequencies. So it is in the Anahazi language. That was the original Elohai Elohim Lyran language of the cradle of Lyra that we'll talk about. So anyway, thank you for singing that with me. Yes?
Is there any translation of the Oneida?
It's coming. It's coming. Yeah, it's harder because some of the ones we have, like some of the parts of it, I don't have any reference to yet. So I'm getting part of the translations down because they're making me learn how to translate. Instead of just saying, here's what it is. They did that with Lyra, but now they're making me go back and see what, which tones are consistent. They're making me learn the language, basically. So it'll take a little bit of time, but it's coming. It's similar in nature to that one, like what it means, but it's not talking about the Christos. It's talking about your D8 level, your monadic self, your oversoul connection. Okay.
Okay, 10:30 tomorrow morning start.
Okay, 10:30 tomorrow morning. Is everybody here? I see a lot of... You are! Are you feeling better? Good. I'm so glad you're here. We missed you. I was like, oh no, what happened to her? Okay. Okay. If everybody could, kind of, take your seats so we can get underway. We have a lot of material to cover between now and tomorrow night. What Az and I decided we're going to do as far as the round table, we're going to go up to salutations tonight, a group salutation, which is one particular technique. We're going to do the round table tomorrow, okay, because the round table is large and it has to be done outside. And I didn't warn anybody, so if you may freeze to death if you haven't dressed warm or worn boots or whatever. We're basically, I think, Monica, where are we going to be, in the field? Monica, are we going to, is that... Yeah. Okay, so we can go in the park over there. Excuse me, I'm getting a cold. For the round table. The round table is going to be a very interesting experience because by tomorrow I will also have the rest of the information on the Canadian grids and exactly what we're going to be accomplishing with this. It'll be many of your first round table, but every one of the round tables, even with people who've never done them before, have a purpose, not just for training. They actually serve to do part of the healing. So we'll know more by tomorrow what that is. We'll also be able to, we'll understand more of what is going on because of what we covered today. So tomorrow will be a better day for the round table, and that way you can also bring, warm clothes and boots and those kind of things so you don't freeze out there. Yes, I remember I said, uh-oh, I forgot my boots. I'm going to be in a round table, and these little flat things, I'll be ice skating all over there. So it's kind of hard to spin in the snow without boots. Right. The information we're going to cover today, we're going to start with the basics. Some of you that have been in the Cathara workshop will be familiar with this already. Whoops, somebody's raising their hand there, excuse me. Turn the mic up a little? Okay, that's over there. Thank you. Is that better? Is that too loud? It's almost echoing to me. Is that too loud? No? Yes? No? It's a little loud to me. I can hear it bouncing back. The sound's bouncing back too. Just like somewhere in between there. There's some more people. I know nothing about sound equipment. Okay. To begin with, we would like to briefly cover, and I say briefly because it doesn't need too much discussion, but what we didn't get to last night was the discussion about the postures of love. I think that's an important element when we approach a body of data like we're going to be learning through this workshop, because some of it's very confrontational compared to what we've been taught and programmed to believe in our cultures. It helps to begin with understanding love and understanding that sometimes one of the hardest things about accepting this work and the worldview that it represents, it's such a large worldview that you can separate the shaft and the grain, where a lot of people are still not able to do that. And you can find a lot of non-loving response from people because you're refusing to believe the way they believe anymore. It helps to know that there is something called tough love that's absolutely as blessed as soft love, where you don't let yourself get run over. There's also a section in here that talks about martyrdom. If you want to insult God, become a martyr. And I bet if I said that in front of a Muslim audience, they'd all just like look at me and like throw daggers with their eyes, you know, because they're taught that martyrdom is the most sacred sacrifice that they could do to show their loyalty to God. And that is a total twist and distortion of truth. Martyrdom means you see God as something outside of yourself and away from yourself, and you as a pathetic, lowly thing, like a puppet to God. And therefore you are worthless, so you'll give up your worthless life to honor God. But if it's worthless, how is that an honor anyway? The big thing about martyrdom is if you recognize the fact that you are a manifest face of God, perhaps one whose DNA is shut down and you don't remember that connection fully like you'd like to, but you are a blessed manifest face of God. If you're going to martyr yourself, which means treat yourself unlovingly as if you are worthless, you are slapping God in the face. It's just as bad to martyr yourself as it is to go and kill somebody else. These people that kill themselves on behalf of martyring themselves for God, they might as well go kill somebody else because it's doing the same thing. So there is a way of martyring blocks energy. It's not allowing yourself to receive, which means you block the natural flow of love energy between yourself and whatever's outside of you. So we'll talk a little bit about martyrdom. We'll do a reading. Az is going to read for us the first sections on this. And then we'll move rapidly from there after just, I gave enough of an introduction to that, and the rest of it really will speak for itself. There's something called omni-love, or we call it omni-love. It's really Christos love. And that's the space of balance in loving, that you can be tough and firm in your conviction when needed, which means you respect your own boundaries. If you have chosen a certain spiritual path or a certain way of being, you're not going to let someone take you off that path by pressure or intimidation or guilt trips or any of that. There's one thing that's really useful from the beginning is to say, I don't do guilt anymore. All right? We've been programmed in our cultures to feel guilty if we don't live up to an externalized set of standards that somebody else created for us once upon a time. Guilt is one of the most useless emotional choices you can make. Usually people don't realize guilt is a choice. You do have a choice. One of the things that is very important for us to begin to learn is the significance of our mental bodies. That's the three-dimensional egotistical focus. Most of the religions that have come up for over the centuries have literally told us to annihilate the ego, to kill the ego. Ego is a bad thing. Ego is the part of yourself that looks out on the three-dimensional world. You can have negative ego that gets caught up in all sorts of compensation patterns because it feels worthless. So it'll try to go into superiority complex, it'll do obsessive compulsive, all sorts of weird stuff. But that part of the ego needs to be healed. Your ego is where your power lies. This is why so many of the false teachings have taken you away from it, trying to get you to move it away from yourself, get rid of it, detach from it. Because it's your D3 mental body, and we'll talk about this probably either later today or tomorrow when we get into radial body programming, the part of your anatomy that's called the radial body. It holds your memory matrix, and it holds your point, your present point of power. Because your power is always in the present moment. But we tend to put it in the past or in the future and leave ourselves in this space we call the present, never having what we desire to perceive. If we can realize that how we choose to represent anything to ourselves, if we tell ourselves, my emotions do this, I can't control that. My emotions have a life of their own, you will create that. And you will find your emotional body, which is your D2 body, dragging you around all over the place, up and down like a roller coaster. You can tell yourself that my emotional body at D2 and my mental body at D3 get along very well, and my D3 mental body plugs right into my spirit body, so we're a unified force. And you will create that reality too. You can look at an event, you can look at an emotion, you can look at another person, and you can represent what that is to yourself in a negative or a positive way. And whatever way you do, it will be the experience you see from it. So when we go into this situation of looking at a big reality picture, bigger than any I've looked at the teachings that are out there, and nobody's teaching big picture mechanics like this. And I didn't know that. I mean, it was really funny that when I kind of started to find that out was before I had the really heavy stuff. We had Voyagers Volume 2 was out, and I went to a certain workshop because there was a person there that was supposed to be at the time on the Emerald Covenant team. And I was taken to his workshop by friends. And I was going like, oh goody, this is like an elder person. This one will know more than I do, right? So I was like excited. I went, and it was Drunvalo, and I had a great amount of respect for Drunvalo. And you know, I didn't know the guy personally, hadn't studied the work, but I saw a picture of him once, and at the time I liked him. I felt, you know, that's good. And I also was told that he was originally part of the council that we came through, you know, the Melchizedek council that we came through, which means he was supposed to be working Emerald Covenant. So I went kind of all excited, oh goody, kind of like student gets to meet teacher. Oh boy, that was what. It turned out that there were 2 questions. Everybody got to ask 2 questions, and he came up, you know, to microphone and asked the questions, and he'd answer them that way. I was the last one in line. I had 2 questions that had to do with the Halls of Amente, and I'd already had a bunch of information in the book on the Halls of Amente. I asked him, and the reaction was not positive. First of all, he didn't have the answers to the questions I asked, and second of all, what was happening in the field really was intimidating because he was not happy that I asked the questions. So going into this situation, into a situation where we're looking at a worldview picture that really is incorporating more elements of reality than any one body of teachings that are out there right now, it can be intimidating just in the breadth of it alone. If we go into it realizing that to carry that knowledge, because when you leave here, you will be carrying that knowledge. You can reject it, but you still know it, even if you've rejected it. It creates a frequency within you that will always be there. If you see certain things happening, let's say you decide you don't want to listen to this kind of stuff, you'd rather go, you know, like play with Archangel Michael or something because you feel more resonant there. That's fine, but there will always be this part in the back of your mind that's remembering some of the things that we're taught and saying, well, why aren't they teaching that? Well, what about the Hoover bodies? Well, yeah, what about my DNA template? Why are you telling me I have 12 single heli strands when I was taught that I had 12 double heli strands? Once you have the knowledge, it's very difficult to go backward. And I went through a stage of denial after I started to see what was happening out there, and I was realizing that there were people positioning themselves against me that I wanted to be friends with. People that, you know, I thought this was a unity movement, the New Age movement. We all love each other, right? Oh boy, wrong. I just found that it can be very intimidating to be representative of this knowledge, but at the same time, it's very, very freeing to be representative of the knowledge as well. Because if other people choose to not know, that's fine, that's their choice. You can love them anyway. But to know these things gives you back progressively more and more pieces of your own power, to realize you don't need anything outside of yourself except your knowledge. And that's not outside yourself, that's inside yourself. Your knowledge is the key to letting the rest of what you are express here. If things get bad on this planet, which there's a possibility that they will, we're not going to teach you that they're gonna, because that would give you a belief program in your mind that you'll help manifest it. We're going to do the best we can through the Emerald Covenant and the Guardians to change that reality of negativity. We're going to focus on a future that we would like to see. And this is what the roundtables are about. In the roundtables, we are connecting with other sets of roundtables that are taking place in other space-time vectors, on Tara and in different time spaces in Earth's planetary evolution. There's other beings doing what we're doing. They're going to connect with us during this, while we do our work, because they're going to help us to create the future where, remember how I said time is simultaneous, and there's futures out there, and they're recorded in the CDD plates, futures out there that already have an outcome, what happened after here. So it's as if they look back on us, and we're the history that they came from. We have the choice to line ourselves up with what particular future event we want to see, and the people, the cells of us that are incarnate there, will reach back to us and help to bring us forward. That's what we're doing with the rounds. And it begins with an understanding of love. So we'll start there, and from there we're going to go into mechanics. But between love and mechanics, I'm going to read to you as it was given to me, like directly off the plates, a bit of who's who on the Guardian side. Later, as we progress through the history and things like that, at the end there's going to be a who's who list as far as the Illuminati races and the United Resistance and what they're affiliated with. And if anything's going to get me in trouble, it's that list that just got published in the Voyagers book, Volume 2. So it ought to be interesting to see what might be coming our way. But before we worry about who's who on the negative side, excuse me, we're going to look at who's who on the positive side. I usually don't introduce this. It's like I say, well, it's in the book, if you want to know, read it. You know, that kind of thing. But I think it's important to bring the point home with who we're dealing with here. When we talk about the guardians, we talk about the founders. It'll be very helpful for us to know who those beings are, what scale we're talking about here. We'll talk about a 15-dimensional time matrix, and we'll talk about primal sound fields beyond them, and then source beyond that. We compare where the stations of consciousness are that belong with these guardian races, compared to what most people have been taught through the other teachings that are Anunnaki-based teachings. When you hear somebody say, I'm dealing with so-and-so, he's an ascended master at D5, you kind of chuckle, because you're not an ascended master at D5 unless you really have to give yourself credit for a little tiny step from D4 to D5. We can all make that step. These are beings that are in the higher dimensional fields, and there are certain collectives, organizations, and there are certain periods in time, which are periods in vibration in our time matrix, that they were formed. So we'll cover that a little bit, so you know who we're talking about. It's also kind of fascinating when we get into the founders races, the Christos founders races, because they each created certain types of life forms, all the way through the matrix, coming down from where they are. So we start to find out, once you know about the founders, you begin to look out at reality and realize there are Elohim trees, there are seraphim bugs, there are seraphim trees, there are Brahmarama snowflakes. You start to realize that these are the collectives of consciousness that not only created other forms, hominid forms like we are, but the animals, the plants, the mineral kingdoms, all of those things are from one of those three primary matrices that seeded our time matrix. And it's really fascinating to begin to understand that. There'll be a time in these teachings, which after we get through the crisis intervention part and things are a little bit more stable, there are huge volumes, and I've seen them in the Inner Earth libraries, that talk about dietary guidelines. They teach you about things when we're here and we're consuming things, right? When we eat, when we drink. All right, that's how we sustain our body. When you start to be able to divide food up, it's like food combining and what not to combine, by whether it's fallen angelic, by whether it's not fallen angelic, by whether you have an Elohai template that would get along better with Elohai food stuff, or, you know, you start to realize there's a template behind everything. And some templates will be more compatible with your biology and your consciousness, while others will be less compatible. So there's a whole way of literally lifestyle understanding that if you really want to do health food, what's healthy for one person might not be healthy for another because of the way the DNA template's being affected. So there are very, very practical aspects to the work that we're involved in. We've had to focus on the crisis intervention stuff, which was, first of all, the first healing part was Cathara healing, getting in your D12 frequency and your divine blueprint, learning it's there, and learning how to begin to bring it in the body. The second part is seeing the planetary drama for what it is, so we don't get run over by it. Because basically, I have a lot of compassion for people like the people that like to get upset with me for what I stand for and decide that they're not going to like me. Particularly, the Michael Matrix has been after me since I first set foot behind a podium. And I didn't know it, but people were coming up, and I would have people send me letters. I went to one of your workshops, and now in the name of Archangel Michael, I disassociate myself from you completely. He's like, okay. Nobody said you had to like me. Jeez. You know? But we're going to... Anyway, I'm rambling, and I'm going to put... because we have... because we have a lot to cover today, that's not just the cushy stuff about, you know, love and who's who up there. We have mechanics to cover today. We have Stargate mechanics to cover today. So you know what a Stargate is, and you know where they're located. That was one of the most exciting parts for me when the material was being given, was the material from the Book of Maps and Keys. Because in there, we find out where Earth's 12 primary stargates are located. We find out what they're connected to on the other side, which is really fascinating. That's where we get into stars up there. And the names of stars they're not the Anahazi names, because we wouldn't be able to know what that meant. So they're in the terms that, you know, our societies use, you know, like the Sirius system, the Palladian system, that kind of thing. We find out what gates connect to what. And we begin to find out amazing things about the planet itself. There'll be a time in this discussion where we get into something about the crystal caverns, which it was really interesting. When that information was introduced to us, the crystal caverns are, if you remember a Cathara grid, the 12-pointed grid, the Tree of Life grid. Well, if you look at that and you look at the 12 points as stargates and those little lines that run in between them, Now, we've talked about that in relation to the body, but in relation to the planet, those lines that run in between the Cathara centers are actually tunnels. They're crystal caverns, literally lines of tunnels that you can walk through that connect gate to gate, but they have seals in them. You won't even be able to see the entrances to them unless you have certain things activated in the DNA template. But the crystal caverns are beginning to be discovered. In Chihuahua, Mexico, they have recently found, on the front of your books, in fact, there's a picture of huge crystals, I believe. Let's see. Okay, you see the picture that has the little person by the big crystal? That picture was actually given to me by a friend of ours that comes to our workshops. She was guided to our workshops right before she got an invitation to go with a scientist crew to Mexico on this, this explore. And what they were exploring were these crystal caverns in Chihuahua, Mexico. They have just supposedly been discovered, and they are massive selenite crystal spaces. These are the small ones. The crystal caverns and these smaller crystal caves, like are being found now, are actually connected to the halls of Amente gate temples, which are in inner earth. And these are massive crystal temples that are literally made out of crystals like that size, but they're tiny compared to what the ones are there. So there's many things to discover on this planet. And I will let us get started so we get there, so we get to the point where we can discover them. Anyway, would you please read the Postures of Love? Okay. What? Oh yeah, the microphone thingy. There you go.
Okay.
It wants to be higher. Yeah.
There you go.
Warned me, he said if we put it too low, he'll come running up and move it.
Okay, good morning. Okay, postures of love. The energetic reality of love. In terms of universal physics, love is an energy reality, a state of vibrational harmonization or co-resonance of frequency that allows an energetic bridge to build between individuals. It is through this energetic bridge of frequency that one can assist in running healing energies that will facilitate the healing process of others. Without the sentiment and frequency of genuine love, one cannot energetically facilitate the healing of another. Love is the essential ingredient in healing, for it allows the opening of facilitator and client's bioenergetic fields to the universal frequencies of the interdimensional spectrum. Cultivating the ability to embrace and hold the frequencies of universal or omni-love is the responsibility of any true healing facilitator. The emotionally experienced reality of the frequency of love takes many forms. In healing facilitation, it is important to assess the most appropriate form of love to engage with each individual client. The first of these we refer to as soft love. Many people respond well to soft love, the kind, gentle, nurturing, soothing love, often displayed by mothers comforting their own infants. Soft love works well with clients who possess some degree of spiritual maturity and who have cultivated the ability to hold some degree of a love frequency within themselves. Soft love is the appropriate form of love for clients possessing the maturity to accept personal responsibility for themselves, their actions and their emotional reaction patterns, and who do not attempt to manipulate, drain energies from, or place blame on others. Soft love is characterized by engaged detachment of the facilitator and is demonstrated through soft-spoken, calm, and sincere words and actions that are intended to place the client at ease. Soft love is always built upon sincerity, kindness, respect, and a genuine desire to see the client thrive and prosper. Developing the ability to carry the soft love frequency takes time, attention, and practice, and requires that the facilitator works to heal personal internal conflicts, unresolved issues from childhood, and karmic reaction patterns that disrupt the soft love vibration. Soft love is a vulnerable love, in that it necessitates one to show the self as it is, honestly expressing personal feelings tempered with kindness. Soft love is not approval-seeking. It is rather genuine, honest, and self-generated. Soft love is not approval-seeking. Soft love requires love and respect of the self and others mutually. It is built upon a level of spiritual maturity in which it is understood that personal value is implied by the fact of existence and is not determined by the approval or validation of others outside of the self and the personal relationship to the divine. The ability to carry the soft love frequency emerges through spiritual integration, personal healing of internal conflicts and power struggle issues, and intentional application of kindness and mindfulness. Tough love. Soft love does not facilitate healing on all occasions. Certain clients who come to a facilitator for healing assistance bring with them a great need for emotional healing and development of spiritual maturity. They may demonstrate demanding, arrogant, or pushy attitudes and refuse to accept responsibility for their personal actions and resulting consequences. Most often, such individuals carry deep wounds from childhood or from reincarnational bleed-through. Because they are wounded within, they have not yet developed the self-control or maturity necessary to treat themselves or others with kindness, respect, or love. Individuals who display unreasonable behaviors or attitudes pose quite a challenge to the love-based healing facilitator. If they are approached with soft love, the facilitator will often find themselves as a scapegoat for the individual's personal problems, may have their energies and time excessively drained by such clients, and might possibly be subjected to outright verbal or physical abuse. Clients exhibiting such personality traits are struggling within themselves to gain control over the various conflicting portions of their personal energies, and they tend to objectify this internal conflict resolution in the form of a power struggle with others. Personalities trapped within cycles of subconscious self or other abusive attitude patterns need love more than anyone. But most often, their behaviors push others away. Intrinsically, the behaviors serve to keep the individual sheltered from self-exposure. They do not allow others close enough to inspire feelings of vulnerability or lack of self-esteem. Often such personality traits effectively keep the individual from seeing themselves and the inner pain and conflict from which they attempt to hide. To facilitate healing in such individuals without succumbing to their manipulation, aggression, or abuse requires the facilitator to adopt a posture of tough love. In tough love, the facilitator clearly establishes personal boundaries in their own mind as to what treatment they will and will not accept. If the client crosses those boundaries, the facilitator assertively addresses the issue with the client, requests that the offensive behavior cease, and provides clear consequences as to what will occur if the offense continues. The tough love approach is rendered from a base of soft love and omni-love, but it is strengthened with self-love on behalf of the facilitator. The facilitator recognizes that they are only assisting the client to continue with the self-destructive patterns by condoning or allowing offensive behavior, and chooses to love the client enough to confront the pattern so that it may begin to release. In lovingly, calmly, but firmly confronting poor behavior and setting clear boundaries and consequences, the facilitator assists such clients to temporarily find a new pattern of action, because the old one does not work for manipulation in this instance. The tough love approach frequently requires facilitators to demonstrate that they hold their own power, even in the face of client disapproval. Tough love is an ability of personal empowerment worth cultivating for personal and client healing. Self-love. In healing facilitation, love is the essential ingredient. All love begins with a divinity within the self. You will be able to transmit the frequency of love to others in direct proportion to your own ability to hold the frequency of love within yourself. If you do not recognize your intrinsic value as a divine being and seek validation of your existence through external sources such as achievements, status, or other approval forms, you will likewise project these sentiments into your love relationship with others. If a client does not meet the external standards of validation that you have placed on yourself to determine your personal worthiness of love, you will have difficulty not falling at the judgment of the client. Judgment and love cannot transmit through the human body at the same time. Judgment creates an energy reality of separation or non-resonant frequencies of energy, whereas love creates the co-resonance of frequencies needed for open flow of universal energies for healing facilitation. If one can realize that love is the only constant and that all conditions of judgment change, it is easier to cultivate the innate ability to fully hold the frequency of love. Though assessment of conditions, actions or attitudes is useful and necessary, such assessment can be rendered through separating the person from the action. You can judge the effectiveness or value of the action or idea without assigning a value judgment to the person to which it is attached. If the healing facilitator can feel love, reverence, respect, and honor for the divinity within themselves, they will also transmit these qualities of excellence in love to the client. The quality of love brought into the healing facilitation experience will directly affect the success of healing assistance given. Love the self and know that all beings possess an unalienable worth and value as a living part of the divine. Begin to cultivate this awareness within your personal life, and you will greatly increase your effectiveness as a healing facilitator. Love, honor, and respect yourself, your feelings, your dreams, and your desires, so you may better love those you wish to serve. Love others as you would love the self, and love the self as you would love others. Now, the illusion of martyrdom. People who love themselves do not buy into the idea that they must play martyr to others in order to be of service. Martyrdom implies a belief that you are lacking in worth, or you must earn your worth in being by relinquishing that which feels most of value to you. It also undermines the expression of the God presence within others by assisting them to believe that you are so vital to their well-being that they cannot function without you. In truth, martyrdom is an expression of ego. Ego.
Negative sort.
Of the negative sort. Most often used by people who feel they are personally insignificant in the eyes of the divine in order to give themselves significance and a sense of personal power and purpose for being. People who actively know the intrinsic spiritual divinity within themselves treat that divinity with honor and respect and do not allow or need others to deprecate the self and its desires in order to prove the existence of a belief in personal divinity. Martyrdom does not facilitate healing within the self or client, as it reinforces the erroneous belief in intrinsic personal unworthiness which exist in direct contradiction to the innate God presence that exists in every living thing. Within the energy dynamics of universal law, natural balance is achieved in the flow of giving and backflow or receiving of energy. In human spiritual relationships, this balance of energy is achieved by mutually valuing each person in a relationship, through which the natural giving and receiving of energy can be exchanged unimpeded. Martyrdom impedes the natural flow of energy. The martyr customarily gives more than receives, which progressively diminishes the martyr's ability to keep open a perpetual flow of energies from the divine, because the martyr does not allow the self to receive. Martyrdom is not a demonstration of love. It is an exhibition of love deprivation. The remedy for martyrdom is omni-love, or universal love. Omni-love, fully engaging the love vibration. The greatest love that can be embodied in human form is omni-love. Omni-love is a pure state of vibrational frequency co-resonance between the human identity and the 12 dimensions of reality within which the human anatomy is couched. Omni-love is expressed in human form as Christed love, or Christos consciousness, the 12th dimensional love of the Maharic level of identity. Christos love is a state of full frequency resonance with everything existing in the many universes contained within 12 dimensions of the 15-dimensional system. It is a transcendent love that is attached to no thing, but is at one with all things, in a state of perpetual engaged detachment. Through Christos Omni-Love, the self is known as an extension of God, or the divine source, a temporary mask of form worn by the one consciousness of the cosmos. All things and beings are known as simultaneous expressions of the one self that is God's source. From this state of transcendence in love, all activity is understood to exist within the reality of love. And all conflict and strife are viewed as the one self progressively expanding the ability of its expressions to carry the frequencies of energy that constitute one love, a state of vibrational frequency co-resonance with the cosmos. Activation of the full 12-strand silicate matrix DNA template and full integration of the Mahara Hoover body avatar identity allows for the experiential embodiment and transmission of Christos Omni-Love. Embodiment of Omni-Love is the goal toward which human evolution moves forth. Omni-Love is soft, it is tough, it is enduring, and above all honors self, other and divine simultaneously. It is the strongest healing force of frequency in the four harmonics of matter density. Christos Omni-Love is the fulfillment of the Christos principle. Strive to bring Omni-Love into your life and personal and client healing facilitation, and you will assist your higher identity levels to create transformational Omni-Love. And this is the natural structure of reality. Awareness of Omni-Love is cultivated through intention and appropriate use of personal free will, in congruence with the natural laws of the unified field physics of consciousness and creation. Through living in Omni-Love, all moments are known as sacred, all beings are known as blessed, and life becomes an ecstatic study in the very reverence for existence.
Thank you. Wow. Showing my reverence. Pardon our transitions here with the microphones. Okay. Those words tell us a little bit, anyway, about the different postures of love. Those writings were in the Cathar manual. That's why they're phrased in terms of client and facilitator. But in truth, if our objective or the goal that we seek to achieve is being a Christos being, to integrate as an avatar, it implies that we are a healing facilitator. On a planetary level, that's what Christos beings do, just by the fact that their presence is there. The world is your client. And that applies to the environment as well as to people. The postures of love are very, very useful, particularly in the personal relationship sector, because this is where most people get tangled up in knots. And if you made a knot when you were in your teens, say with a male-female relationship, you tend to recreate that knot for quite a while in other male-female relationships until you work it out. And if you really trace things back, you can usually trace the exact same knot back to your relationship with your opposite gender parent. And that came from another issue in another time frame, another life. So if we can begin to realize that the L word, the love word, has been so abused on this planet as an excuse for energy vampiring. We've been manipulated by guilt that's attached to love. Oh, if you love me, you'll do this, even if it's not good for you. There's a lot of people that go into spiritual development and they feel the call of their spirit and they want to follow it. And it's not really taking them anywhere in the negative space, but their partners or their family, their mothers, their fathers, their sisters, their brothers, their friends, don't like the feeling because they're not getting that frequency. So they'll try to say, oh, don't do that. How could you? You mustn't like me. Oh, how terrible. Look at how long we've been friends. Or look how long we've been together. How can you abandon me? Isn't it terrible? You're only trying to get spiritual. You know, nobody said I'm abandoning you. There are manipulation games all over the place that have been going on for centuries and centuries between human beings that have to do with not love, but power. So often the word love is used to hide a reality of power struggle that's taking place. Very often people seek love from another. They think they're seeking love, but they feel powerless or frightened in their own lives, and so they're actually seeking somebody to attach to suck energy from in order to feel safe. Women were taught this for ages. When it went into the patriarchal dominion of women, where women were rendered powerless, we've had a cultural pattern that has brought us up to where we tend to be very frightened if we don't have a male to attach to. And we think it's because we want a male to love. We're taught that. But that's usually not what it is at all. We want somebody to make us feel safe because we lost touch with the ability that we have the power to make ourselves feel safe. So very often women, unknowingly, women don't mean to do it, that from the time they're little girls, they start with daddy, and then it moves on to the next one, to the next one. We get so scared because we're told, we're women, we've been told so long, and it's in the genetic race program. It's like a repeating CD player in your gene code that tells you, you are female gender, you are less worthy, you are less powerful, you are weak compared to strong male. That means if this is a hostile world, which it appears to be sometimes, you're in trouble unless you have a male. That's got translated into things like the financial issues, where the woman was stuck in a role of playing homemaker while the male went out and earned the money. So a lot of times, even now, even with women's lib and the fact that many women are, financially independent, there's still a lot of women that carry a pattern of fear of dealing with the financial world head on because it's scary. It's overwhelming. It's all paperwork meant to mess with your head and take your power, when you get into the financial world the way it is. It takes a huge amount of energy to function in the financial world. Like things you'd like to put your attention on, usually it isn't taxes, it isn't all of this stuff that if you're going to be part of the financial world that you have to deal with. So there's also a payoff for the old kind of approach to the male-female relationship from the woman's part, where it's like, okay, I'll let him be the guy, and he can go deal with all the paperwork and stuff so I don't have to focus on that. There's also the same trips that men end up playing on women. For eons now, men have been trained to look at women as objects, like a couch or a car or a house. They're supposed to look like this, they're supposed to act like this, doesn't matter who they are. But this is the model they're supposed to live up to. And if they don't live up to this, they're unlovable. Well, that feels awful to be on the other side of that one. Women feel this in our cultures. Right now there's a huge split between men and women, even as they're trying to come together, because we have been trained to use power struggle under the guise of love, where we think we're in a love relationship. but it isn't love that's happening. Love is a state of vibrational harmonization, where literally the frequencies blend and energy flows. The opposite of that is power struggle, where this energy tries to pull, and then this one, and this one, and this one. Usually, relationships start with that little flutter of vibrational harmonization. That means you each have something in your gene code that brings you together. Then there will be these areas where the power struggle starts. That's where you have reverse things in your DNA templates, where literally you're objectifying through the relationships. And it's not just male-female. It can be with, mother-daughter, father-son, vice versa. If we begin to understand that we have a choice in choosing what postures of love we're going to apply, first of all, that'll immediately not put you in a category of manipulation. You won't be able to be manipulated by somebody saying to you, well, you didn't do this so you don't love me. He says, of course I did. I still love you. But right now I'm tough loving you. If you'd like me to soft love you, please don't overstep this boundary that you're trying to pull my power. You learn to talk to yourself differently first. You learn to say, I am good enough. No matter what standard you set for yourself, so often men and women are taught to say, no matter what it is, it's not good enough. Well, I made it this far, but it should have been here. I wish I had this color hair, or those color eyes, or that shaped body, or that size bank account. We're taught to not love and not accept ourselves as we are. We need to realize we're perfect. I can say to myself, I am perfect. I can say that you are perfect too. That doesn't mean there's some preset standard of what perfect is supposed to be. There are things we can strive to achieve, to expand, but at every moment we are perfectly who we are. And if we let that be okay and get off our own case about it, we will naturally expand and evolve into the things that we are interested in growing and becoming. But when we begin to beat up on ourselves, well, someday I'll be lovable. Someday when I don't feel guilty because I didn't do this when I was 10 years old, or I didn't do this when I was 30 years old, or I did this and I made this mess in my life and it affected people, so I feel bad, so I'm not good enough, so I can't love me, I'm not lovable. We have to be able to love ourselves first and to choose love. You have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you. Just grin at yourself. And it's silly. You start laughing when you do it because you kind of, this is silly. But it isn't silly because you're telling the part of you that you've been beaten up on all these years, that probably started with your parents beating up on it when you were small, they didn't mean to. But you need to be able to say, I love you to you. You need to be the most important person in your universe. That doesn't mean you have to be egocentric or selfish. It means you have to put you first and your connection to Source first if you're going to have to be able to hold your power in a way and hold your love in a way that you can give it to others. Give yourself permission to love you first, and then you cannot give to somebody a frequency that you do not have. If you are carrying self-hatred and self-loathing inside of you, you will try to be loving toward people, but there will be an undertone of what almost feels to them like anger. People will frequently say, are you angry with me? And you'll think about it and say, no, because you weren't really angry with them. Somehow there managed to be a field signature, an energy signature coming off you that said, your words are, your mouth is saying, I love you, and the feeling is saying, no, I don't, right? If we can harmonize this in our own bodies, this is part of our own shadow self, the part of our self that's connected to the part of our DNA template that's running a reverse mathematical program from the divine blueprint. That's our shadow self. It's a tangible reality in our DNA. It's a chemical reality in our DNA. That part of ourselves needs to heal. And the more we tell that part of ourselves that it is lovable, and it can grow, and it will. That doesn't mean, say, you're perfect, you don't have to grow anymore. Life is continual growth and expansion. You'll never reach the ultimate perfect because it always changes, it moves. It's like a target you're trying to aim for that moves every time you throw a dart at it. So love is very important. Starting with loving yourself, going into soft love. Soft love is preferable whenever possible. It feels good. It's soft and cozy and cuddly. It's when people give each other hugs and they're just totally open and their heart chakras are totally open. That feels wonderful when that can happen. But if there's any power games that either person has in that type of situation, you'll end up in a power struggle and an energy vampiring happening to the person who holds their heart center open the most. So there's a way, that's where you take you begin to set the boundaries. They're loving boundaries, but the tough love boundaries. Say, okay, well, in loving myself, I know that these are the things that mean something to me. And I'm not going to let anybody compromise those. That's how I'm going to honor myself, love myself, and the God within me. Then, if somebody's trying to cross those boundaries, you can say, excuse me. This is where assertiveness, not aggressiveness, but assertiveness comes in. Aggressiveness would be defense. You don't need to defend yourself. That's aggressive reaction. What you need to do is assert yourself. That's simply holding your power, saying, excuse me, it doesn't work that way in my world. If we're going to share a world together, I will treat you this way because I care about you very much. You can treat me this way too. And if you don't, if you continue to throw stuff at me, like when you have abusive relationships or something, a classic example, this is what's going to happen. This is a boundary. It's harming me. I'm not going to let that happen anymore. I love you dearly. However, if you cannot stop this behavior, I will do this in order to remove myself from its effects. But if you put that on the table, be willing to back it up. Don't make any threat you can't fulfill. If you're like at home with somebody and you're having a abusive relationship or something, don't threaten to leave unless you absolutely mean it. Because if you do that once and you don't, the next time, the boundary means nothing. It's like a child. When people, one of the interesting things that you can stop your brain from getting engaged too much in issues with people, in yourself, you have a thing come up between, an argument or something come up between somebody, and you feel yourself getting trapped into it too. You feel your emotions come out and you want to have an issue with somebody. If you say to yourself, how old am I right now? And then, how old are they right now? And sometimes you can break it up by asking them, how old are you right now? I'm 4. Where you start to realize there are these emotional body patterns that are getting tied up into the conversation, taking the totally off logical stuff, where you're just throwing energy at each other. If you can break it up by realizing there are different age levels that you carry right in your body, and if there were stuck things at age 4 or stuck things at age 10, they're going to come out until they're unstuck. They're going to come out in different types of patterns, different types of attitudes or issues or ways of presenting yourself, and other people are going to do it too. If we can start to realize that we all have our inner child with us, that sometimes is tangled up with our shadow self. They're different things. The inner child isn't always in the shadow. Sometimes it's the part that'll let us go outside and look at a nice covered pond, down at the feet and go, yeah, and run, no matter even if you're 90. You know what I mean? So the inner child part will be the part of you that can be in touch with the joy as well as with the issues that came up. If we can just be aware when we go into studying heavy stuff that has to do with Templar mechanics and major political dramas taking place on the planet and in the universe, if we can approach it still with the love, knowing that the love is there. Love is a choice. And any moment you have a choice of primary 2 things in relation to directing your energy: love or judgment. Love or judgment. Now you can love while assessing situations, but if you're assigning situations to the value of the persons involved in them, you block the love. It is always worth choosing love, because you will learn through that. If you judge somebody, that means you don't want to hear anymore. You're not going to take a backflow of energy from them. You don't want to understand. I've met people, and it's amazed me, a person who was very dear to us, there's some issues that came up around with other people that had been in our groups. And the person was a wonderful teacher, knew our material technically in excellence, to the point where he was correcting everybody else that wasn't perfect. He didn't mean to do that, but he did. There was a point where we tried to resolve the issues that were happening with certain group members and this individual because of the perfectionism, because of, well, this is the way it is and nobody's good enough because they're not doing it perfectly, which is not an attitude of love, it's an attitude of judgment. That got to the point where we tried to point this out, and like the group of people were talking together, and the person blew up and just said, I don't want to resolve it, basically. Some people will choose judgment because that's their whole modus operandi. They've lived their life through that. They do it to themselves. It's usually the people that judge you the harshest are doing the same to themselves. And they judge you and make you lesser in order to make themselves feel like there's something, better. So we have a choice to not get trapped in those patterns, but sometimes the choice can be very, very blurry. Because this is why, psychiatrists and things make a good living in our societies. Because there's a lot of our brains and our emotion, our brain function, our emotion, our mental body stuff, our subconscious mind, whatever that is, that we tend to not understand. And things come up for us and we don't know what the heck to do with them. What is interesting is eventually, as spirituality becomes understood, psychiatry will become obsolete, and the psychiatrists will become spiritual leaders because they will understand the mechanics. When we talk about subconscious mind, where a lot of your feeling stuff comes from, you can have a lot of stuff in there. It has to do with your DNA strand number 2. and you strand number 1. All right, your emotional body is partly blocked right now. So there's a part of it that's literally beyond the view of the three-dimensional mind. It can't see it. That part accretes energy and pulls energy in and creates things that are called subpersonality imprints. Subpersonality imprints they can be the beginning stage of, split personality, but they're not. Everybody has subpersonality imprints, where if you have one idea and one part of you wanted to do this and the other part wanted to do that, you did this. What happened to the other part? It gets stuffed down as a not expressed thing, but it is a thought form that takes a part of your consciousness. It goes into strand 2 template and hangs out there. It becomes part of your subpersonality imprint in the emotional body level of your being. Now, if there's problems and there's a lot of repression of your own desires, you will find you build a monster. You create a huge shadow self there that's going to fight for your energy. This is what happens with people who go into split personality, where they literally have so many conflicting parts of themselves stuffed down the subconscious. They all come up through the DNA template as energy blobs at different times that take control. And eventually they need to harmonize those. When we work with the technologies we're working with, every time we run a round table, for instance, we're still conducting a healing on ourselves. Because when we run the D12 current, we're resetting again the divine blueprint in our body template. When we reset the divine blueprint, we are also taking those portions of self that are running in twisted, distorted, fragmented patterns and progressively giving them the divine blueprint to reassemble themselves among. So what we are doing is up-leveling the subconscious mind into the conscious. That's why you will find when you do spiritual development, or especially if you play with round tables, where you're not only doing your own Merkaba stuff, which runs more frequency, you're doing it in a group, which amplifies the heck out of everybody's frequency. You may find emotional issues coming up. You may find you want to go home and cry for no reason. You may find if you had any astral field implants or anything, that things are trying to get at you. Run your Maharic seal. That will block that out. But you will find a healing taking place of these parts of yourself that get you tied up in non-loving type engagements with people. It's a wonderful feeling to be able to absolutely love somebody who chooses to call you their enemy. That is one of the biggest challenges, to honestly, sincerely love them so much that if you could do anything that would genuinely help them, you would do it just as much for them as you would your own child. This is how we feel about the Archangel Michael matrix and people who are taking negative stances against us. That is what it's about, what Christos love is about. Being able to look at your worst enemy, that somebody like that, decided they were going to victimize you, let's say. If you feel victimized in your life, that's a pattern, a two-way pattern. Victim-victimizer. There'll be the victimizer person that you feel persecuted by. That is going to be the hardest person to actually love because you feel persecuted. If you can realize that you can change every victim-victimizer thing by recognizing that you're creating a hologram. If you are playing victim, you are creating that victimizer. They're serving the role for you well, and that doesn't mean that they're right and it's all your fault. But it means by changing your own stance and refusing to play victim, going into self-love, setting your boundaries and not allowing them to be shifted, you will find victim-victimizer disappears. It's only when we continue to repeat the patterns. These are patterns that have been ingrained in us since childhood, and not just since childhood, they're coming through from the other time vectors. So a discussion of love is very important because love has everything to do with being able to, or not able to, hold personal power. If you want to hold your personal power as an avatar, you cannot do it without love, without embodying love. You will not be a very effective avatar if you use intellect and knowledge, but you do not have the wisdom that comes of the ability of loving. Loving, again, is simple. There is a physics reality to love. State of vibrational harmonization equals, in the body terms, state of chemical harmonization. People that feel in the love space with each other, their body chemicals are actually resonating in the same spaces, not just their templates. So you can create this type of resonance. The human body was designed to be able to experience full love with 12 dimensions of reality minimum. That means you could become a tree. You could literally move your consciousness into a tree and feel how the tree is feeling itself. You wouldn't be invading it. You're not trying to attach to it. You're just trying to comprehend it. We're born empaths, and we're taught to turn empathy off when we're very, very small because it hurts too much. If mom's mad at you and you're like 2 years old, and all of a sudden mom gets really mad and overreacts to something, and you can feel everything mom feels, and all of a sudden mom wants to whack you but's doing everything she can to not hit you, That gets scary as a little person. We are conditioned to shut off our sensitivities because the world can overwhelm us. It's time to turn them back on, and it starts with a conscious choice. Choose love. If you can remember those two words when you get yourself into situations, choose love. And then choose spirit, meaning your Christos in the higher levels. Don't settle for middle spirit, the whole thing. All right? These are concepts, ideas that you can learn, but if you play with them, you can make changes in your life. Before you even get into understanding radial body dynamics and how you can actually reprogram your radial body to reprogram your DNA, which is what we'll get into by tomorrow, before you understand any of that technical stuff, it goes to the simple stuff. Love. Love yourself. Love Source. Love your connection to Source more than anything. Because that's where any potential for anything you want resolved or anything you want to experience exists within you and your connection to Source. Love that. Love others. Love the planet. Try to be a carrier. Almost like it's a healing disease called love. It's not a disease, but it's like a virus, a good virus that's going to come in and spread its frequency around. Start to learn the history that was taken away from us. This was part of our memory that was literally blocked, almost like in the Matrix movie, where they literally had people in a virtual reality program mentally, and their bodies were hooked up to something else. We've been in this kind of situation. Our memory banks were literally shut off, so we could not perceive them from here. When they start to come back, they start to come back through the emotional body first, strand 2. You get them in feeling form first. You might not be able to see pictures or know what your name was or if you were male or female in a particular life, but you will feel an emotional resonance. And it will usually be, you'll find it starts down around the second chakra, down here, and it'll move up to here. And then sometimes up into your throat, and it'll get choked up, and that kind of thing. There's an anger that's associated with what has taken place on this planet in the last 25,000 years especially. It's a healthy anger. There is such thing as a healthy anger. It's not an anger where you're going to blame. All right? Unhealthy anger is where you're saying, you did it, it's your fault, you're bad, that kind of stuff. That's judgment. That's not love. That's not going to work. Healthy anger says, this situation is just not good. It's not good for any of us. We're going to fix this situation. It can be a fuel where you want to set right what wasn't right, but you own it, and you don't blame, even though the victim-victimizer game has gone down on this planet big time. It has. This race has been victimized by the fallen angelic races. However, we allowed this to take place, partly on a higher level for our own learning, so we could understand and get close to being like they were, as messed up and as cruel as they were. We didn't understand what that meant, so we let ourselves get that bad. That way, we could empathize. So we actually went down into the pits to join them. We let them take us there. So we could get in there, understand it, love it, heal it, and then bring them out with us. So when we go into this history and identify the victim-victimizer game, realize it's a spiritual learning game. Both sides have agreed to play. It is serious when you're in it because you can be stuck in it for a very long time. But love is the response that will allow the healing to take place. The anger is okay. If you start feeling angry or hurt or that victimization feeling, there will be a level in your emotional body that will respond to that because there's been so much pain built up in the human imprint through what has taken place on the planet. But if you can take that and realize, I'm going to heal that now, realize that the ones who played victimizers, you think this pain is bad, right? At least we have the ability to feel love. Okay? We still have some of that left. At least we have the ability to feel the presence of God with us and through us. Those are the things that give humanity its strength. Imagine races of beings who have lost the ability to hold those frequencies, where honestly and truly they walk around in their existences, they develop their mental bodies and get very, very intellectual. They understand mechanics of things, but they cannot feel the vibration of love. Things are just things to move around and create. It is a type of consciousness. You think of sharks. You know how sharks are? Did you ever see the photographs, the underwater photographs where they show sharks swimming, and you get the look in that eye? It's like this dead look, all right? Sharks are eating vessels. They think about consuming. They don't feel an ability to, that warm, fuzzy feeling we call love. They just be. Now, sharks aren't antichristos. They're beings, but they have templates that don't have a lot of coding in it like the human coding does. It's because of our 12-strand coding that we have the ability to experience greater and greater amounts of love. So the people, the beings who have victimized us in this civilization over the thousands and thousands of years, these are beings who once upon a time were like us. They were Christos founders races too, once upon a time. And they ended up using creativity in a way that created unfortunate results that even they hadn't planned on. They got stuck in those results to the point where they can't feel the connection to anything, and so they feel no remorse when they abuse other things. You can see this consciousness sometimes when you see interviews of serial killers, where they'll look right in the camera and say, yeah, I did this, and they'll describe it in detail, almost like enjoying it again. And they have utterly no remorse for the pain or horror they caused to another being. They just don't feel it. When we talk about fallen angelic races, many, many of them are in that space. So we might look at ourselves as victims if we get stuck in that, but that's not where to go. We are still fortunate. We are still carrying the ability to love, the ability to heal, the ability to care, the ability to know Source directly. They are suffering worse than we ever have because they are completely unaware that that potential exists anymore. So who is really the greatest victim? They were victims as well. Victims become victimizers. In the victim-victimizer game, it always happens. If a person gets pushed around enough or feels that they're being pushed around enough, they feel that they don't have the power to change what's going on, they will eventually lash back and become the victimizer in one form or another. This has happened with the human race as well. There have been times when our races got entangled with being the victimizers before they'd come and victimize us again. It still creates a vicious circle of warring and power struggle. Love is where you can stand in the middle of it and say, I choose love now, and I bring my Christos frequency in, and I bring that awareness with me. I hold tough love, I hold soft love, I hold omni love right now. And I know that I am the manifester of my hologram. This is key. If you think that you can see anything in 3D reality that is not in your DNA, you don't get it yet. All right? That means we're all programmed into each other's DNA, or we would not see each other. This comes from our tribal shield, the race DNA imprint. Okay? We are literally programmed. Everything we see is a part of ourselves. That means we have the power to heal it inside, and it will change the hologram outside. You can heal other people, actually, by doing this, at least your experience of them. You can't inflict your will on someone else and zap, you're healed, you're perfect. That would be an infringement on their lessons, as the spiritual lessons that they're teaching themselves. However, you can go and realize every person you see is a symbol person, as well as a real person. They are a symbol that's coming from a piece of your DNA template. It represents something to you. They are a part of your consciousness, that all the beliefs they have, all the ideas they have, all the illnesses or non-illnesses they have, what they are, what they symbolize, is a part of you objectified, a part that you couldn't hold in your body. Remember, you're God, okay? God is one being that put itself in a multitude of forms, and literally they're all coded within each other's DNA template. You can begin a healing process by finding the part of your DNA template that connects to each element of the hologram that you would like to heal, and begin bringing the D12 frequency through it, simply running D12 frequency through it. There are techniques that we can get into. At some point we probably will in the Dance of Life course, because that's like the personal day-to-day spiritual development course that is the third level of this. But for now, I just wanted to bring fully into our awareness as we go into the technicals that this is coming from a love base and a love space, and it's a choice that if you find yourself feeling funny or feeling upset or aggravated, when you start hearing, agitated is a better word, when you start feeling the history and seeing the history, seeing the deception that has taken place, remember the L word. I'm going to choose love. Yeah, even if I don't, it made sense before, but right now I don't feel it, right? Because if you get caught up, the emotion starts coming up. You can say, well, I choose love, and that made sense to me when I didn't feel this, but right now it's becoming very difficult to feel loving. Just keep choosing it. Just the choice alone will bring in more of your Christos frequency that will help to harmonize that, and you'll begin to know the lesson. In every negative, or thing that seems or feels negative, there is a lesson that you agreed to have that negative exposure so you could learn the lesson from it. you can learn the lesson, as they say, the soul taps you on the head with feathers or sledgehammers, depending on what you need, you know. I opt for feathers whenever possible and simply say, well, okay, what is the lesson here? Okay, I feel lousy. What is the lesson here? And what is my best course of fixing this in divine right order? Divine right order meaning within the divine blueprint. So as we will move forward now. I will do a brief reading on, just so we know who's who in the wonderful world of the guardian races. So we know who we're talking to, we're talking about, and talking with. And from there, we'll go into mechanics. Let me find my page here. Yes?
Aren't they, wouldn't a dark avatar or something, aren't they smart enough to know that their end result is space dust?
Yeah.
Why do they want to?
Because there's an if.
They're arrogant.
There's an if, okay? Dark avatars know that the end result for them will be space dust if they cannot continue to suck life force energy off living matrices. So therefore, they put all of their energy and intelligence into finding ways to suck life force off of living matrices. And eventually, if it gets too bad, and it's going to literally take a living matrix and pull it in to a phantom matrix, to a dark avatar matrix, at that point, Source, there's a built-in program within the 15-dimensional matrix. Because it would infringe upon free will, which was the original agreement that they all made, if that matrix was completely destroyed, Source will intervene, and there will be a closing of, a shutting off of those currents. So it's like a balance. Sometimes the dark side will, pull in a lot of energy, and then the pendulum will swing back the other way. There will be a balance. But they know. They know that they are going to be space dust and evolve into fragmented portions of units of consciousness and no longer remember themselves or be able to hold power that way. And that's why they vampire. It's energy vampiring. They suck living life force currents off of living matrices. And that's what the game is all about for them. Okay? Now, all right, this thing, this section here, I found in my book. I don't know if it was corrected yet in your book. There was a page that was out of order. So it made it hard to read. Let me see where that was. They have been fixed? Okay. All right, so that should be all right then. I'm just going to read this to you really quickly so we get an idea. There is a hierarchy here as far as who's in higher frequencies and who's in lower frequencies, but it is not a hierarchy like some of the Anunnaki teachings will tell you. It is not a hierarchy of lords of this and lords of that above that. It's not a hierarchy of the big ones on top control and manipulate the little ones on bottom. It's not a hierarchy like our governments tend to do. It is a hierarchical structure only in the sense that certain frequencies are higher than others, and that allows for more consciousness to be held within forms within those frequencies. But the ones that have the advantage, say our Rishi levels of identity that are stationed in density 5, dimensions 13, 14, and 15, our Rishis do not look at us as little playthings down here to manipulate. They don't impose their will on us. They know that we are aspects of themselves created with free will. So they will assist us whenever possible to expand into the greatest that we can be, because they experience and learn through us. So we're beloved and loved to them. So when we talk about the structure of who's in the higher dimensions, who's in the middle, who's in the lower dimensions, it's not about the power struggle games that are created out of elitist hierarchy. It is not an elitist hierarchy. There may be a difference in developmental level between beings, but there is no difference in worth, in intrinsic worth. They are all equal. They are all faces of God, even the fallen angelics, all of them. So this is known. When I talk about the hierarchy here, the ones in the highest up in the hierarchy are the ones who understand that the most. And the ones on the lower end, which means they're just smaller body forms holding smaller amounts of consciousness, they understand to the degree they can hold that they are loved and they are blessed and they are worthy and they are free. The ones that would be on the lowest end of the scale right now will be the avatars and ascended masters running around down here. We're running around down here trying to get our memories back, trying to get our DNA opened, but there's parts of ourselves that we're directly connected to that are up there in these other organizations that I'm going to talk about. Okay, now, this is called the administrative levels of the Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister. First of all, the word Melchizedek, just because a lot of people say, where in the world does that come from? There's like a few references here or there in the Bible to it. The biblical references at this point were referring to King Melchizedek, who was an Anunnaki. and Nephilim, Anunnaki. That's not what Melchizedek is limited to. That was they adopted that, that name. But Melchizedek is the closest translation you can get into the languages available on the planet right now to the original tonal signatures of the particular ascended master collectives that created the founders races that created this time matrix. So it is like a family name in the primal sound fields. It's a large collective of consciousness. Everything in this time matrix is a Melchizedek. It doesn't mean it's a Melchizedek that remembers it's one, or that's, working with divine right order, but everything came out of the collective of consciousness that if you took its vibration pattern and turned that into external sound, it would give you the name Melchizedek. So that's where it comes from. It's a name that belongs to all of us. It's not just and we do not teach the stuff about Lord Melchizedek. This is a classic hijacking that's being run by some of the Anunnaki false ascension teachings, where Lord Melchizedek is running all this. There is not a Lord Melchizedek, other than a personification of an objectified God figure that the Anunnaki matrices are creating. I've seen people that have pictures of Lord, paintings. There's certain people who've done paintings of Lord Melchizedek because he appeared to them, that kind of stuff. This is not true Melchizedek teachings. True Melchizedek teachings, there's only one Lord. And we don't call it Lord, we call it God or the Unified, because Lord, the way it's used here, implies subservience. And that source does not look at us as things that are supposed to kneel down, bow down, and be subservient. So the word Melchizedek belongs to all of us. Melchizedek cloister refers to the particular group of ascended masters that are part of the Melchizedek family that came into this time matrix with a promise. They came in with a job that they would hold the original divine blueprint, no matter how far creative exploration took this time matrix away from its original divine blueprint. They would always hold the codes of the original divine blueprint and not allow it to deviate. So this time matrix could always regenerate itself. It could always be brought back, even if it went over into the negative, let's say, where it was going to self-destruct. The Melchizedek cloister races are guardian races from the Ascended Masters level that came in to protect the integral structure of this time matrix, so that it could continue as a life field for exploration. Other Melchizedeks, they call themselves Melchizedeks now. Most people on the planet that call themselves Melchizedeks are affiliated with Templar Melchizedeks. They don't know that that means Anunnaki Melchizedeks. So this is one of the things that's probably going to create a real hoopla in the New Age movement when the books start to circulate, because they just came out. We're identifying this thing, like the difference between a Melchizedek and a Melchizedek cloister, and what Melchizedek really is. But this word belongs to you. It's a family name that belongs to everybody and everything. There are ants that are Melchizedeks, okay? Atoms in this time matrix are Melchizedek atoms. It's just a tonal energy signature that comes from the vibrational signature, the specific mathematical configuration that the Ascended Master Collective that formed this time matrix took on when its first individuation from Source. So that's what the word is, that name is about. Okay. In descending order of administration, all Emerald Order Melchizedek Cloister organizations are egalitarian cooperatives and do not work under authoritarian hierarchical order, but rather through co-creative agreements based upon principles of law of one communion and genuine, non-patriarchal Melchizedek Cloister Maharata Inner Christos teachings. So all of these organizations are built upon those teachings we've talked about, the law of one and the egalitarian and the love principle. They are all built on this. Now, in this structure of cosmic down to mortal identity, the word Unisai, Y-U-N-A-S-A-I, is a total translation, again, of a certain vibration that it represents Source. People use the word God down here. People use the word Source. It doesn't really matter. Some people use the word Creator. They're referring to the same thing. And the ancient races used the word Unisai. So the Unisai would be considered the first level, the highest point of that hierarchy. But it's actually not a pyramid. It's a circle, or an egg-shaped thing. Let's call it the cosmic egg of Source. Source, the Unisai, would be this energy field. And then these other energy fields take place down in here, inside of Source. So if you're going to expand to the highest level possible, you would expand back out to the Unisi or Source consciousness. That's at 1 mint with Source. Okay, if you went back into the Unisi, you would be back into full at 1 mint with Source. You can also hold that consciousness by fully activating an indigo DNA template, which would have 24 to 48 strands. If you had 48 strands in the DNA template as an indigo child, you would be able to carry that sense of full expansion of the Unisi literally with you into the body form. 12-strand humans can carry a large part of it. They can carry to the Christos fields, the D12 Christos fields. Most people that even pay attention to this work are indigo children. So I would assume that most people in this room have 24 to 48 strands somewhere in there. There's very few 48-stranders on planet right now. Most are in the 24 to 36 range. So a lot of these things that we're talking about, and I talk about the indigo children like, as distinct from the humans that have 12-strand. Aim high. Consider yourself probably that this applies to you, the indigo applies to you, because that means you're running more currents. So don't underestimate yourself just because you're not sure. And eventually, you'll get it. Your connection to Source, your connection to your Christos self will let you know if you are indigo or if you're not. You don't need somebody outside of yourself to tell you that. Eventually, it will come if you ask the question, enough times to your Christos self. If you're ready to know, your Christos self will let you know. Okay, now we have the Unisi, the central point of all union, eternal consciousness of the one all, also called Great Spirit, Source, God, Creator, etc. Next rung in, okay, next circle in, if we're doing cosmic eggs, next egg in, going toward the center, you have what are called yanas. Yanas are eternal collectives of consciousness that are projected by Source God to form the 3 primal sound fields, which means these are collectives of consciousness that form the primal sound fields. Yes?
What page are you on?
Okay, I'm on it's XVI. It's in the front.
Or the big binder?
In the big binder. It is in the big binder. Okay, in the next hour. All right, well, I'll take the 15-minute before then. Oh, excellent. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Now, the eternal collectives of consciousness, they're projected by Source, or the Unisi, to form the 3 primal sound fields. So when we talk about the mechanics of 15-dimensional reality and the primal light and sound fields, we're not just talking about energy fields. We're talking about conscious energy fields. These are collectives of consciousness. They're intelligent, they're sentient, they're aware, just as Source is sentient, intelligent, and aware. So when we talk about the primal sound fields, which are called the Kundalini fields, or in physics terms, the energy matrix, these are areas of consciousness and awareness and identity. These are identities as well as just energy. Energy is conscious, and consciousness is energy, and you can't separate the two. Okay, so the Kundalini, which are the primal sound fields of the energy matrix, they're beyond the 15-dimensional time matrix, which means the 15-dimensional time matrix takes place within them. It is a smaller individuation of consciousness. So you have Source, you have the Kundalini primal sound fields, and there are identities that go with these primal sound fields. They're ascended master identities, and there are 3 different collectives that form the primal sound fields. The first level, which represents the first expansion from Source, so that would be the first egg in, okay, are called the Grandyanas. And again, the names are translations of the vibrational signatures. The Grandyanas, they are the yanas of the first primal sound field, the Akkadic level of the energy matrix, the first individuation of Source. They're also called the Emerald Order yanas, or the Blue Flame yanas. They're the ones that will later go on to form the blue flame light fields, the primal light field, blue light fields. Then the next one in, you have the Grandyanas, then you have the next one coming in, are the Vachyanas. They're the yanas of the second primal sound field, the polaric level of the energy matrix, second individuation of Source. They're also called the Gold Order yanas, or the Gold Flame yanas. Then there are the Ramyanas, the yanas of the third primal sound field, the triadic level of the energy matrix, third individuation of Source, also called the Amethyst Order yanas, or the Violet Flame yanas. All right, now these are the sound field collectives, consciousness collectives, ascended masters collectives, that never go from there. They don't leave there. They just exist perpetually beyond time in this state that allows for the rest of creation to take place. So they are consciousness collectives that each one of us, as if you look at us as a consciousness stream of source decides to come into this structure that we call dimensionalization, we pass through the Yanas. So a part of us becomes one of the Yanas consciousness. We have an ascended master's level in each of those levels. Some of us will have more coding of one than the other. Like each of us can trace. These are a cosmic family, if you want to look at it in terms of identity. We each have a relationship to a cosmic family level. This would be the Yanis level. You might be of the blue flame, the gold flame, or the violet flame Yanis. You might have more of the coding of their templates than than others. But you have a piece of all of them. Yes?
You mentioned violet flame. Where does Saint Germain comes in with violet flame?
But we'll get into that at some point. Yeah, the violet ray of transmutation. The violet ray is the D7 frequency, as well as, see, violet and violet. Violet is a term that was used for the primal light and sound fields, but it's really pale magenta pink. D7 is the pure violet flame. D7 can be run in reverse matrix. All right, everything up to D11.5 can be run reverse. So a lot of the violet flame teachings are doing just that. Like the Saint Germain Collective, they're quite a bit buddy-buddy with the Archangel Michael Collective and those kind of things. They're working on the same team. It's an Anunnaki school. Saint Germain and those guys there's Saint Germain, Katumi, El Mourier, that whole collective. They were part of the Ruby Order. Okay, it was called the Ruby Order. And they were, at certain times, working to bring fallen races back in through host matrix into the Christos pattern again. They were working redemption contracts for them. But at other times, they decided they were going to work the negative side. And right now, they've sided with the Anunnaki legions in joining the United Resistance, unfortunately. Anyway, so that's where Violet Flame fits in. Okay, now, after we get through the primal sound fields and those consciousness fields of the Yanis, then we have the Brenau orders. The Brenau order founders races. These are the three eternal gestalts of consciousness that are projected by the Yanis to form the three primal light fields, the Kirashe light fields of dimensions 13, 14, and 15. So again, you have the gestalts of consciousness here in the primal sound fields, the Yanis. They project a part of themselves, just like Source projected a part of itself to become the Yanis. Then the Yanis project a part of their selves to become what are called the Brenau, or the primal light field consciousness. All right. Okay. The density 5 antimatter spherical thermoplasmic conscious light radiation fields. That's a mouthful. Okay. They're spherical. They're thermoplasmic, hot plasma. Okay. And that's like, it's basically a gaseous state. It's before matter solidification. It's light in a gaseous state. And you can really, I think, visually, to visualize it, think of a sun and how that gaseous light kind of, moves off of it when you see this, the pictures of the sun. We all have our own connection. We have a Rishi, level of identity, that's directly connected to the Brenau orders. The Rishi, these beings are called Rishi. Sometimes they're called solar Rishi. Sometimes they're called metaterrestrials. And the three founders races, they are a universal family of consciousness, and they represent the universal trinity of this time matrix. And they each carry aspects of male, female, and spirit. Okay? It's not the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It's the Father, the Mother, and the Holy Spirit. Yeah, there's a little gender bias there if you think about it. The Father meaning the base electrical transmitting energies, the Mother meaning the base magnetic drawing energies and frequencies, and the Holy Spirit being the point where they are both merged together in a non-gender bias, non-polarity. All right, that's what the eternal trinities were all about. That's what was really meant by the trinities. And it's come a long way since its original translation, because it was used again. It's like, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. No mom's in here at all. It's like, how did any of them get here without a mom? Then we have the Divine Mother sitting over here, having to be a virgin, of course. At least some of the tribal religions and things evolved where they at least knew that if you're going to have trinities, there's a woman included. There's, they did acknowledge divine male and divine female. So anyway, the concept of the Trinities has to do with these three levels. You have three levels of the sound fields in the honest consciousness. You have three levels of the light fields inside of that, of the Brennau consciousness, the Brennau Rishi. Each of us have a part of ourselves stationed there too. It's part of our universal family of consciousness. These Trinities are interesting because the way they exist is the first one, the first expansion from source in the sound fields, which would be the Akkadic level, okay, or the Akkadic Janus, the Grand Janus. Within the Grand Janus, the polarity takes place, okay, where you end up with the next two down. So one, where you have the Vajrayanus and the Ramyanas. Ramyanas, the violet ones, would represent, I believe they are the female. They would represent the female polarity, where the gold order Vajrayanus would represent the male polarity, and the Grand Janus represent the non-polarity, where those two polarities are always unified. All right, so this goes all the way down, where you have the blue light, the primal blue light, or that turquoise light of D13. Within that actually forms D14 and D15, which would be the D15 would be the violet, it's the pale pink magenta color that's called violet. That would be the female, and the gold lights, pale gold, would be the male. So this Trinity is literally a part of the whole structure that the hologram is built on. That Trinity is seen in the primal units of consciousness that form the technical stuff that we talk about. When we talk about Parta-K, Parta-Chi, and Parta-Cum units, you have Parta-Cum, base magnetic female, you have Parta-K, base electrical male, and you have Parta-Chi, which are the original non-polarized unit out of which they come. So the Trinity concept was a true part. The Bible has carried some of that there, but it hasn't it's taken out what it originally meant and made it mean something else. So we have the Brennau order, founders races, in density 5 in the antimatter fields. They are the Emerald order Elohai Elohim. They would go with the D13 blue light, turquoise light frequency. They are the first light manifestation of source consciousness. All right, before it was the sound manifestations of source and the honest. These are the Brennau. Okay, the first light manifestation of source consciousness projected from the blue flame Grand Janus, Akkadic energy matrix sound field. They seeded the Anahazi feline hominid Elohai Elohim Christos founders race. Hear that? Anahazi feline hominid. Human cat. Cat human. Cat person. All right, now out of those, it has evolved into what, this is our lineage, by the way. We'll get into what our lineage is and how we fit into this. The Elohai Elohim were the primary gene code that was used to form the human form. There's other things combined with it, but that was the primary one. So it's funny, I've seen some work out about 5 years ago about somebody was channeling the Leonines. And it was interesting. It's a group, it's not this group of them, but it's one of their outshoots. The cat people, if you ever hear anybody talking about cat people or talking to cat people, they're talking to some version of the Elohai Elohim. Okay, because there's various ones, there's a few that got tied up with the Anunnaki to try to help them out of the Phantom Matrix. But, so you have the Elohai Elohim Emerald Order. Now these are the groups that we're incarnate out of, as far as what our templates hold the most coding is, the most coding for as far as the mathematicals. Both Az and I are out of the Elohai I can't talk this morning, the Elohai Elohim Emerald Order. All right. Some people may find, and you can feel it kind of by resonance, you may find you're part of the other two, where you're connected to that one, but you're more coded for the others. And it's all right. They're all equal. Because what's happened here, what is that sound?
The hydrator.
Oh, okay. There was a microphone going. Okay. It's important to understand that these were all the same level of consciousness that came in to form these fields, so it doesn't imply one's better than the other. It's like everybody run to be an Elohai because you don't want to be a Seraphai because Seraphai are lower than Elohai. It doesn't work that way. Well, in the Anunnaki hierarchy it does, but in our, they teach it that way. They teach hierarchical control, structure. This is not about that. This is just, okay, well, we don't need everybody in big form here, so we need a big one, then we need people to play these roles too. So it was really a group of Ascended Master collectives that agreed to take on certain roles. Some would have smaller forms, others would have larger forms, but they were all equal, and they were supposed to remember that, and they have up there. Okay? That also tells us how we're supposed to look at each other. A child is no more inferior or lesser than the adult it's going to become. A human being is no more inferior or lesser than the avatar that it is in the higher dimensional fields. Okay? The value is equal, even if the developmental or the size is not equal. The size or the developmental level can vary, but the equality of value is always the same. Okay. Now, let's see, do I have to read all this? Okay. Yeah, here we go. Into the houses. Okay. Now, the Elohai Elohim, Anahazi feline hominid race, were created 950 billion years ago on density 4 D12 pre-matter planet Lyra Aramatena via the Universal Stargate 12. They're called the Royal House of Aramatena, is another thing they're referred to as. They're the Iani Grail line and the Orpheum Turinicium human, angelic human Grail line. They're the primary founders of the Iani and of the Orpheum Turinicium angelic human. The Density 5 Melchizedek Cloister Iani Master Council, appointed by the Ianis as the primary guardians of our time matrix. So that's what they were created to serve. That it was the role that the Ianis created to put a part of themselves into manifestation to serve. All right. So the Emerald Order were the primary guardians of this time matrix. They're the founders of the 15-dimensional Interdimensional Association of Free Worlds, the Azurite Universal Templar Security Team, and Guardian Alliance, Universal Service Organizations, and the Emerald Covenant Coevolution Agreement of 950 billion years ago. So they were the original originators of the Emerald Covenant Coevolution Treaty, and that was the treaty upon which the agreements were made of what type of time matrix this was going to be. It was going to be a free will system. It was going to be based on love. It was, this was the original covenant where consciousness of the Ascendant Masters agreed on what the game rules were as they began to create the hologram. As they, they're basically like the core blueprint. The Emerald Covenant is a translation of the divine blueprint, the original intention for this time matrix, as it was agreed by Source, the Ianis, and the founders. All right. Let's see.
How many other time matrices are there? And are they all loving?
No, they're not all loving. There's other experiments being run that are very different than here. There are lots of others, but they go in groups of 24. All right? We'll get into that when we get into structure a bit. So they go in sets of 24 time matrices, or 12, and they're parallel, if you want to look at it that way. Okay. Okay, let me see. It takes me forever to find my place again once I look up. Okay. Let's see. All right, here. The fallen D11 Anu feline aquatic ape hybrid line of D11 planet Lyra Avion became the D11 Anu Elohim fallen angelic race line 250 million years ago. So this was out of the Elohai Elohim Emerald Order. There was a group of them that were stationed in D11, Dimension 11, on a planet called Avion, which was where Stargate 11 was. They were the guardians of that gate. And it was that group that fell, and that became the Anu Elohim, which are the ones who chose to run an anti-Christos agenda, and the ones who created the Anunnaki races. All right, so this is the collective. The Elohai Elohim are the collective that the Anu Elohim came from. Okay. The Gold Order Seraphi Seraphim are the next Brennau order. They're the second light manifestation of Source consciousness, projected from the Gold Flame Wachianas polaric energy matrix sound field. They seeded the Ceres avian, which are bird people forms, the Athian mantis forms. Now, it's really interesting. I don't know if any of you follow the UFO movement, but there are a lot of reports of these big white mantises that people are having encounters with. Sometimes they come in solid, sometimes they're like etheric looking. These are the Athian. All right, so these were created by the Seraphim, the Seraphi Seraphim matrix. They have also created the insect, reptile, dinoid Seraphi Seraphim Christos founders races 950 billion years ago. So in the beginning, when these creations, or at the beginning point where these creations are in their original form, all of them are not, none of them are fallen. They are all with integrity. They all have a divine blueprint, and they are expressing that divine blueprint. That means there's good insects, there's good reptiles, there's good dinosaurs, all that kind of thing. When we refer to the fallen reptile and draconian matrices, we're referring to just groups of them that had fallen, just like a group of the Elohi Elohim had fallen. So it's not that all things of reptilian nature or all things of dragon nature are not good. All right? Okay, let's see. They're created, all of those original race types were created 950 billion years ago in density 4, dimension 10, pre-matter planet, Lyra Vega. Okay? So these guys, the Seraphi Seraphim, were seeding Lyra Vega. It's called the Cradle of Lyra, where stargates 12, universal stargates 12, 11, and 10 exist in 3 planets. Aramatena is 12, Avion is 11, and Vega is 10. Now, Aramatena, I believe they had finally decoded that. They said it's the double-double, what's called the double-double in Lyra, in the Lyra constellation. All right? So that's called the Cradle of Lyra. And each of these, the 3 primary stargates, which are the gates out of here. Once you come in, you have to go back through those gates to get back into full expansion to source. They each had one of these original Christos founders races and their seed races to be the guardians of that particular planet with its stargate. Now, the royal house of Vega were the Seraphi Seraphim, and they had the mantis and the insect, reptile, and dinoid type race lines. Okay? Let me see. I hate trying to find my place in here. All right, they were appointed by the Giannis as the secondary guardians of our time matrix. They're charter members of the 15-dimensional Interdimensional Association of Free Worlds, Azurite Universal Security, Templar Security Team, and the Guardian Alliance. So these guys are part of all those organizations too, along with the Elohi who started them. Okay, and they are also part of the Emerald Covenant ever since 950 billion years ago. They are appointed as custodians of fallen draconian race rehabilitation efforts. So these are the guys, the Gold Order people, are working to rehabilitate and bring into redemption contracts, which are bioregenesis contracts, all the fallen reptile and dinosaur type races, or dragon moths, actually. When I talk about draconian, I'm actually talking about a very specific group called the Omicron Draconians. The Omicron are a dragon moth. They're like a cross between a dragon-type form with moth-type wings, and most of them walk, well, some of them walk upright. So when I'm referring to draconian, that's what I'm referring to. The Gold Order, Brenau Rishi, are commissioned to assist them in coming out of the fall and back into the Christos imprint. Okay, let's see. These are, okay, the fallen D10 Omicron dragon moth and Odedicron reptile lines of D10 planet Lyra Vega. So that's where they fell. That's when they started to digress and get their code convolution. It was on Lyra Vega. Became the D10 Draconian Seraphim fallen angelic race line. They're the creators of the Dracon, the Zephelium Zeta, the Dracos, the Necromaton, the Azrael, the Dinoid, Reptile, and Insectoid fallen angelic races. They're centered in the Orion star system, in Alnitak and Alnilam, Orion, which is where their location is. Now, they started in density 4 like everybody else, but they have populated down into the lower densities of those fields. They have populated, their own race strains. Now, the Amethyst Order, which is the third one, the Amethyst Order Braharama. So they were the 3 founders' races. You had the Elohi Elohim, Seraphi Seraphim, and now the Braharama. They're the third light manifestation of source consciousness, projected from the violet flame Ramyanis triadic energy matrix sound fields. They seeded the Innu cetacean whale people, the aquatic dolphins, the Pegasi, which are Pegasus. We call them Pegasus here, but they're called Pegasi, which are avian horse deer. Actually, that's what that form is. And the Yoni, aquatic ape Braharama Christos founders races. They're seeded 950 billion years ago, again, like the rest, in density 4, D11, pre-matter planet, Lyra Avion, where Universal Stargate 11 is located. They're called the legitimate Royal House of Avion. Now, there's some interesting channeled material coming out by an author who I won't mention. Very nice lady, but the channeling is interesting because they're claiming to be, we are the Nibiruans, And they're saying, we're the Royal House of Avian. And no, they're not. So this was put in here for people who are familiar with that work to clarify that these are the actual Royal House of Avian, which were the Amethyst Order Brahmarama before they fell, because the other groups that are claiming to be that are actually one of the fallen groups that were out of this, out of this collective, but they're claiming that they're the Royal House and is part of a deception program. So anyway, legitimate Royal House of Avian, part of the Iani Grail line and Orpheum Turnstile Angelic Human Grail line, contributing founders. So each of these races contribute a part of the template to form what was first the Azurite races. They were the first guardian races in this time matrix. And then there was another guardian race put in that had more flexibility with the densities, and that was where the humans were created. Each of the three founders races got together and put part of their template coding in, so humans would carry the whole spectrum of codes. Okay.
Any point?
Yeah, we can put that up.
Now?
Yeah, put it up now, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. Thank you, Liv. Okay. Okay, now. Okay, they were appointed, the Brahmarama, were appointed as the custodians of the fallen Anu Elohim and Anunnaki race regeneration efforts, many of which are orchestrated by the Great White Brotherhood. Okay, the Great White Brotherhood people. These are the Ruby Order people. These are groups that were originally part of the fallen Anu Elohim that got back out and got a host matrix, which means they got plugged back into their divine blueprint through the Amethyst Order Brahmarama. That's why you get Violet Flames and Anunnaki working together a lot. Okay, the Ruby Order people, when they are honoring the Christos template and the Emerald Covenant, they work to assist in evolving the Anunnaki races and bringing them back into the Christos imprint. All right, the Great White Brotherhood is one of their main organizations, and there are several other. Great White Brotherhood has just about split down the middle over what's happening in our particular time frame. It's not the first time. Okay, the fallen Brahmarama race line hybridization. Fallen Brahmarama race lines hybridized with both Anu Elohim and Draconian Seraphim angelic races. So that means they were fallen members of the Amethyst Order Brahmarama races, and they began hybridization with the other fallen races, creating all sorts of diversified things that weren't originally part of the divine blueprint in this time matrix. Okay. Now, the IAFW, Interdimensional Association of Free Worlds. This is a massive universal service organization assembled by the Janus and Breno founders' races 250 billion years ago upon restatement of the founders' Emerald Covenant, under the direction of the Density 5 Emerald Order Elohai Elohim founders and their Density 4 Anahazi Feline Hominid Christos founders' race. The Gold Order Seraphi Seraphim and Amethyst Order Brahmarama rallied their Density 4 Christos founders' races for restatement of the Emerald Covenant. This was at a period of time when the Elohim Wars took place, which we'll talk about a little bit later, some point in the history, where the fallen Anu Elohim blew up Stargate 12 and tried to take over the entire time matrix. That's where the Phantom Matrix black hole subtime distortion system was created. Okay. The Elohai Elohim Anahazi, Seraphi Seraphim, Avian Ceres, and Athian, and the Brahmarama Pegasi and Innu Cetaceans, Christos founders races organized the IAFW. So they were the leading members of it. They organized it, creating a unified collective of guardian angelic nations. The IAFW was created to protect our time matrix from fallen angelic race dominion after that phantom matrix had been created, to restore the structural integrity of our time matrix, which means to try to help evolve that fallen matrix back into our time matrix that was damaged during this fallen angelic warring, okay, and to offer Melchizedek Cloister bioregenesis, rehabilitation, and ascension programs to fallen angelic legions in our time matrix. So they were appointed, this organization was appointed to keep the structural integrity of our time matrix intact once the phantom matrix was created. So this one didn't get sucked down into that one. They're also appointed with trying to do the massive universal mechanics that are required to literally bring that matrix back in to this one, because literally it's like a piece of our template got blown in reverse and blown off our grids. So you have like our time matrix that there's this piece of it, there's a hole that's missing, and that's put in reverse, and it's running against time, the natural flow of time here. And the idea was to try to get that back in, if possible, And if not, there would come a point where this would grow as big as the time matrix itself and threaten to draw it in and reverse the whole matrix. That's the point in time we're at right now. Actually, we hit that point in 22,326 BC. That's why the decision was made to completely finish the Christos realignment mission here, which would break that link. So that matrix could not swallow this one. And this is where it all started, way back in these levels of simultaneous time creation. This is all going on now, if you think about it, in these frequencies that are different time bands in the higher dimensional fields that are billions of years away from where we are as far as linear progression. So anyway, the Interdimensional Association of Free Worlds are a massive universal team run by the primal Brunel orders and the Ionists that were assisted in, that are commissioned to try to evolve this time matrix back to its original integrity and to offer bioregenesis, which is DNA template and consciousness template regenesis back to the divine blueprint so they can get the ones trapped in phantom matrix out of phantom matrix. But it's very hard to do when the ones that are trapped in there don't want to come back. And that's the situation that's happening. They're using their free will choice to say, no, we're having a good time being manifest, and as long as we can keep sucking energy off a living system, why should we have to play nice? Why should we have to, be peaceful and be co-creative, and rather, because they were told they couldn't go around dominating other races and killing them, because they went into like a killing spree during the Elohim Wars in 250 billion years ago. The killing spree was almost like a bloodthirst, because they started to get distortions in their consciousness because they had it in their templates. They became little killing machines, and that was not allowed in the divine blueprint because it threatened to destroy the entire matrix. So they've decided that they prefer dominion, they prefer to live the way they are, and they use their excuse of free will choice to literally violate. They know that they will be finite if they don't continually feed off of living matrices. So that's what's going on here. Okay, then there's the Azurite Universal Templar Security Team. This was created by the founders races of the Interdimensional Association of Free Worlds. So you have Interdimensional Association of Free Worlds founders. Some of them created this other team. They got together to create this team called the Azurite Universal Templar Security Team. All right, they were created again 250 billion years ago in response to the Lyr and Elohim Wars. The Azurite Security Team and the Azurite Iani Grail Line race were created to allow the members of the Iani Elder Council from the Energy Matrix. So the Iani Elder Council was a part of the Ascended Masters Ianist collectives, to allow the members of the Iani Elder Council from the Energy Matrix to incarnate directly into the densities in our time matrix for crisis intervention, because it was getting so bad here at that point, and the Phantom Matrix posed such a danger here that more of the Ascended Masters, more of the Honest Consciousness, were going to come in to try to help stabilize it and get it back together. The Azurite Iani race line has a full 48-strand DNA template, which allows for direct incarnation into density from the Akkadic energy matrix. So literally from the first expansion from Source, it was that collective, the Grandianis, who were going to be the main ones that came in with the 48 strands. All right, some of them would come in carrying more of the Wachianis or Ramianis coding, but they would still have the backup of the Grandianis coding, which means they were directly connected to Source, where they could pull a lot of energy and a lot of knowledge as far as, okay, we're creating a mess here, how do we fix it? Because that's basically what it came to be. Like creation was going fine from 950 billion years ago to 250 billion years ago. Then all of a sudden, problems broke out. And it wasn't really all of a sudden, it was progressive, where things started to get worse, and they were kind of ignored and let go, and then they got worse than that, and they built to the point where the Lyr and Elohim Wars happened. So again, this Azurite Universal Templar Security Team was created to help in the repair of this time matrix. That period of time, 250 billion years ago, was called the fall. All right, that's what the original fall was referred to in the Bible. It was also the point of original sin. And it was considered sin, not in the way that it's come to be used in the Bible, but the sin they were talking about was it left a mark on every being that was in this time matrix, because when Stargate 12 was blown up, it literally demanifested the 12th subharmonic in every template. So everybody was trapped in the time matrix until Gate 12 was repaired. And so it was like the original sin that literally colored everything in this time matrix, not just human races or anything. And it was a sin that was not attributed. Humans didn't do it. That's another twist in the Bible. They make it look like we did the original sin. The Anunnaki did it. They were the Anu Elohim, before they were even Anunnaki, are the ones who chose to blow up Stargate 12 because High Council would not give them their way in destroying the Seraphim races on Vega. And that's what it all blew up over. So there is a history to these things they call original sin and all of that. Okay, so, yeah. Let's see. Let's see if I have to read all this. Okay, the Azurite Iani race line has full 48-strand DNA template, allows for direct incarnation into density from the Akkadic energy matrix. The Azurite race line is the originator of all Iani races in density, including those guys in Inner Earth and other ones that have been around. The Iani are the indigo children. Okay, the Azurites are the forefathers of the Orifim angelic human, Sirius B. Maharaji, and Terran Melchizedek Cloister Iani priest of Ur, and the Magi Azurline priest of Ur, Christic Iani indigo child Grail lines. All right, and this was the line, the Azurline priest of Ur, that Jeshuas Nanda Melchizedek, which was to Jesus, who he birthed out of, and so did all of us actually. Any of us that come in right now, any indigos that come in, come through the Council of Azurline, Sirius B, Gate 6. We come in that way because we take a different entry into the consciousness, enters literally at a different set of gates to avoid some of the heavy distortions that are in some of the other Stargates. Stargate 4 and Stargate 3 had massive distortion. 4 and part of 5 were distorted, so we tend to come through 6 directly down to 3. If you look at a Cathara grid, you can it's called the Path of Amareya. This is how the indigos get into body, and it's through the Council of Azurline that goes with Sirius B Stargate 6. So some people say, oh, you mean you're aliens from Sirius B? No, not really. We're humans from Sirius B, you know? But actually, so is everybody else, you know, in a human body. Everybody started as humans from Sirius B, so it's not alien at all. Okay, let's see. Okay, the Azurite security team serves as the mobile unit of the Interdimensional Association of Free Worlds. Its Azurite races are stationed near each of the 12 primary stargates of the Universal Templar complex within the 4 density levels of matter in our time matrix. The Azurite race line was commissioned to restore and maintain the structural integrity of the Universal Templar complex. So they were like the team you'd send out, the fix-it team, that wherever something was going wrong with the grids or the Phantom Matrix was trying to tap into something and starting to reverse it and pull it in, they would be assigned, and you know, groups of them would go there to restore the planetary grids or the solar grids or the galactic grids, whichever it was. Okay, the Azurite security team also serves as the overseeing guardians of the 12 primary stargates. So they're the ones that hold the gate keys. They will determine whether someone is a danger or not, is what it comes down to. Everybody's welcome, but you're not going to go through a gate if you pose a danger to the structural integrity of the particular system. Like right now, if you would take some of like the people who run countries here, and say, why can't I go? Well, if you stop fighting and blowing people up and sending bombs and stuff, you might have a chance. You know, you have to be, there's certain levels of consciousness development that are required before you get through the higher gates, simply because there's much more freedom there. And if you're using freedom with a distorted thought idea that is not built on cooperation and love, you can create havoc that can harm many, many other civilizations. Okay, we've been in quarantine on here since 25,500 BC. Okay, it has, literally. It's been galactic quarantine. That's why we think nothing else exists in the universe but us. Okay, let's see. Okay, the Azurite Templar security team is also commissioned to promote the Emerald Covenant Co-Evolution Agreement Peace Treaty and the Melchizedek Cloister Ascension and Bioregenesis programs and the Law of One and the Inner Christos teachings. So they have a commission as well to, when they go into systems, they bring back these original divine blueprint parts of the divine blueprint knowledge, because all of these things, the Law of One, the Melchizedek Cloister Ascension programs, all of those things were the heritage of anybody in this time matrix, because they were part of the divine blueprint, the original idea, the original intention that was set for this time matrix. So they were always the carriers of this data. Now these are the Azurites. All right, then there's the Guardian Alliance, and I'm not going to read every one of the councils. If you want to read all the councils of the Guardian Alliance, it starts on page 20 with the little X's. I believe that's 20XX. Not good at my Roman numerals or whatever these are. XX. All right, so it's Guardian Alliance, GA, Guardian Alliance. It was created by the Interdimensional Association of Free World between 570 and 568 million years ago. So this is a younger organization. It was created during the another restatement of the Emerald Covenant because, again, there were major wars that broke out that almost threatened to take the whole matrix in. And every time that happened, the founders' races would help to get it under control so it didn't, destroy the whole time matrix. Then there'd be a restatement of any races that wanted to be in the Emerald Covenant could come over and, play nice, and then there would be the ones who chose not to. So they were created, the Guardian Alliance was created between 570 and 568 million years ago during a restatement of the Emerald Covenant, during which the Oraphim angelic human lineage was created. These were the ones that had more template coding arranged in a certain way that they could go into density 1 as well as the middle and high densities and survive there for long periods of time. Because the Azurites had sensitivities to the carbons that were in the atmosphere in density 1, and they couldn't live for prolonged periods on places like Earth or anything in density 1. And because there was so much problem starting in density 1 with the Phantom Matrix people, that they needed security force down here as well. And the Azurite groups were very tired. They were the original Ascended Masters collectives that came in to try to fix stuff, and after, billions of years or millions of years, they're still trying to fix stuff. There was a new wave that came in, a new breath of Ascended Masters breathed itself into manifestation to relieve some of the others so they could ascend back out and kind of regenerate and take a vacation after a very long tour. Okay. All right. The GA was formed as a task force to increase security in our time matrix when the Anu Elohim fallen angelic legions created the Anunnaki race line 568 million years ago to destroy the Oraphim angelic human lineages and the races of the Emerald Covenant. So 568 million years ago, in retaliation for the founders creating, or the Giannis creating another guardian form called the Oraphim angelic human. The Anunnaki retaliated, or the Anu Elohim retaliated, and 568 million years ago created the first Anunnaki races. They were the Avengers of Anu. They were created specifically, and their templates were coded with literally, almost like the subliminal program, to kill and destroy anything that was not Anu Elohim. And that included the founders' races, and it included the humans, and it included any Emerald Covenant races. They were the anti-Emerald Covenant races. Okay, let's see. The Guardian Alliance specializes in propagation of the Emerald Covenant and serves as the governing body of over 10 million Emerald Covenant Star League nations within 4 densities of matter in our time matrix. The GA is directed by the Giannis, Density 5 MC Iani Master Council of the Elohai Elohim Emerald Order, Christos Founders Races, and the IAFW. The GA is the administrative body of the 12 GA Signet Councils. Each of the 12 GA Signet Councils is appointed by the Giannis and IAFW to serve as the primary guardians of one of the 12 Universal Stargates in the Universal Templar Complex. Each of the 12 GA Signet Councils is composed of 2 master command committees and 2 subordinate command committees and many other smaller organizations. GA Signet Councils 10, 11, and 12 represent the Lyran High Council races as they protect the stargates of the Cradle of Lyra in Density 4, the passageway into and out of density for seeding incoming creation and for ascension out of the time matrix. So the Cradle of Lyra is protected by the Lyran High Council races. Now, I won't go through Council in crisis because of the following. The Emerald Order, Terran, Melchizedek, Cloister, Iani, Priest-Sever, and the Anahazi, Feline Hominid, Gold Order, Seraphi, Seraphim, Avian, Ceres, and Amethyst Order, Brahmarama, Cetacean, Inu, are the governing body. Now, governing command committee is the Emerald Gold Order, Ashalam Command. The second command committee, Ashalam, means peace, or I go in peace, or I am peace. So that's what that word means. Okay, the second command committee was Ashtar Command. Ring any bells with anybody? Yeah. Okay. Which is made up of Amethyst Order Brahmarama, overseeing rehabilitating Anunnaki races that entered the Emerald Covenant. It once included the Syrian and Nibiruan Anunnaki organizations participating in bioregenesis through the Emerald Covenant. Anunnaki branches of the Alcyon Council are referred to as the Ruby Order Anu Elohim and Anunnaki. Ruby Order groups include the Nibiruan councils of 9, 12, and 24. If anybody's heard of the council of 9, 12, and 24, they usually don't put Nibiru before it. All right. The Pleiadian Nibiruan Anunnaki, Galactic Federation, Archangel Michael Collective, Ashtar Command, and the Anu Melchizedek Legions. Okay. Many Ruby Order Emerald Covenant defectors, including Galactic Federation, Ashtar Command, Archangel Michael Matrix, Anu Melchizedek's and Pleiadian Nibiruan Anunnaki, were responsible for manipulation and digression of the earthly angelic human lineage since 25,500 BC. This was their joint doing, what we're sitting in the middle of now, the genetic distortions and the planetary grid distortions. These groups temporarily joined the Emerald Covenant during the 1992 AD Syrian Palladian agreements and entered the Guardians' July 5, 2000 Treaty of Altair. On September 12, 2000, the majority of these groups defected from GA Signet Council 5, Alcyon Council, to join the United Intruder Resistance. It's just United Resistance, but United Intruder Resistance, with Draconian Fallen Angelic Legions in promotion of the Earth Pole Shift agenda. Some groups accepted amnesty contracts from the GA and IAFW, remaining in the Emerald Covenant. It is very difficult for humans to detect what agenda affiliation these groups may have now. Caution is advised in contact or channeling communication. So this is where these people fit. They were originally part of Alcyon Council. They were loved by the founders so much that even after all the nonsense for millions and billions of years that have been going on, the ones that did want to come back into the Emerald Covenant and showed, after a while that they could be trusted, that they weren't going to try to suck, your planet into Phantom Matrix, they were actually appointed as, part of the Guardians over one of the gates. They wanted to be treated fairly. They wanted to be treated equally. So they were given that opportunity. And that has been a nightmare ever since it was done, because literally those opportunities were used for infiltration of stargates. They've literally had a hold of Stargate 4, the solar gate, the one that connects us, this planet, to the sun, since 25,500 BC. They've completely controlled it. That's why there's very little Guardian presence or history records or channeling happening. Why don't the Guardians talk to people? Because the grids are blocked. That's why. And it's been like that for 25,500 years. So I just wanted you to kind of tune into what's happening. That's where those names that are very common in the New Age movement are fitting. And there's a bunch of others with them. But they're all associated with each other. They're different collectives, but they all have one thing in common. And that's Anunnaki genetic ancestry. They're all part of Anunnaki groups. Okay, some of the Ruby Order people are still trying. They're on amnesty contracts, where literally their whole collective is going over, but the ones who really don't want to go over into the Phantom Agenda, ask for amnesty contracts. Please, we don't want to be a part of this. Help. They don't need redemption contracts because they were doing all right to begin with, but they're not going to be pulled down. So there are some people. That's why there will be people that will be brought into workshops like this that are Anunnaki souls, that are on amnesty contract or redemption contract. They want out of the battle. That's why you can't say, oh, because it's Anunnaki or Draconian, that means it's bad, and then, only human or indigo is good. You will totally miss the point there, because there are so many things happening. There are agendas. That's what's important to look at. Is the agenda that a being is running, whatever that being is it supportive of the eternal life principle of the Christos in this time matrix? That's what the Christos represents, the eternal life principle, where life can continue on and on through the structure that's here. Or does it detract from that? That's where the value judgment comes in, where you can make a decision whether or not you're going to entertain the ideas of a certain person, like a certain person may embody the opposite of the Christos ideals. But that doesn't mean you pass judgment on the being, because you don't know who they are, why they might be showing you that they have those ideals. So that's where love comes in. I choose to love them, but to be aware of my boundaries. And if my boundaries are chosen, that I'm going to stand in my Christos light, and you're trying to tell me that I shouldn't, or trying to pull energy from me and make me feel I should do something different, I'm going to let you know that you're not going to move me from that boundary. And as long as you can deal with that, we can get along just fine and love each other. Usually if they're trying to pull your energy, they don't appreciate it much, though. They usually say, if they can't pull, they tend to go away. Yeah. Anyway, I get winded with this.
The Pleiadian life work that's been, I've attended a workshop with them.
I have too, or in the early days. I loved the Palladians, I thought, until I found out what was going on with the Palladians.
All of these experiences were part of a bigger picture for us to have the empathy and the understanding and to get into that full love vibration. Mm-hmm. This is what I'm understanding more and more. That we not need judge all the teachers we've had, that they were part of our own crystal self wanting us to come here
Yep.
and say, okay, now we understand through experience.
Exactly, yes, and especially the thing about looking at the teachers and not saying, oh, geez, they studied for 20 years in this program and it was all a waste. No, it wasn't. It's what got you here, all right? It's what got you to the next level. So we honor the teachers, even if they're teaching anti what we're teaching. That's okay. We'll still, we still have our boundaries, and we respectfully disagree, and will not, do their agenda. But we give them great respect, because even though this is how Source has the ability to take a negative and turn it into a positive anyway, or even in every apparently negative situation, there's actually a huge positive and wonderful lesson that can be learned from that. What's happening with us in the New Age movement is the level of data that was given by the founders for us to bring through now. This is high-level stuff. It's coming through on like D6 and higher frequency, which if people hadn't at least begun to wake up a little bit, wouldn't have been able to even read it. I wouldn't have been able to translate it. The New Age movement, even though it was being hijacked just about from the beginning, was still very useful, because even people that learned twisted ascension mechanics from Thoth, at least they learned some ascension mechanics. At least they knew what the word Merkaba was supposed to refer to. So there was wonderful things that came from being a part of these other, other groups. And even more wonderful, being able to not get dragged into them to the point where they ended up controlling your power, which is often what happens with them. The Palladian groups, or what you had brought up, the Palladian groups are interesting. There are a few groups of Palladians that are guardian groups. The Ceres races are in the Palladian system, and there's a direct connection between Alcyone and Tara in density 2. Okay, they're actually, if I go there, I'll say it, but they're the same place in density 2. What we call Tara, which is Earth's counterpart, is also the same place that we call Alcyone, looking from here, from density 1. All right, they are actually the same place, Tara and Alcyone. All right, so that gets a little confusing in how things in the hologram from one density to another, how the position of things change. So I didn't want to go there, but I figured I might as well say that. Okay, the Palladian groups, most of them right now are either Belly Cadium, which are part Anunnaki, part Draconian, not Draconian, part reptilian and part human, that were a twist on the original Orifeme human races. They're much taller, but they look like human reptiles. They literally are hominid, but very, very reptile, scaly skin looking. There are a variety of different types of Palladians. There's the pretty Samjaze Luciferian Anunnaki, Palladian Anunnakis. They're the pretty blonde ones that they look like Barbie dolls. The girls look like Barbie dolls. They're just absolutely perfect. They have the perfect human bodies and all this stuff, and they're really sweet. Those guys got their pretty human bodies because when they did what they did here, what they're doing here now, what they've been doing here since 25,500 BC, they did this to a place called Procyon many, many years ago. And there was a race of guardian races on Procyon that the Procyones, they were blonde. They were Nordic looking. And they were hominid. They were human. And they were taken over from within, just like what has been being done here, but it went all the way. So this is how the Palladian, Samjaze, Luciferian Anunnaki went from having their usual they started out as an aquatic ape form, all of those Anunnaki groups did. And not that group of Jehovian did, here we go, that group of Anunnaki that became the Palladians and the Nibiruans started out as aquatic apes, okay? There's another group that started out as dolphins, okay, the dolphin people. But the ones that started out as aquatic apes are the ones that raided Procyon. That's how they wove themselves into a gene code, progressively reversed the gene code, where they could carry that body form, but on a reverse matrix so they could live with it in the phantom matrix, and they can use it to go back and forth. So the pretty blonde Palladians are those. There's little blue Palladians. There's a whole bunch of different kind of Palladians. Most of them are different spawns of the Anunnaki races. That doesn't mean they're bad, but they're manipulative. The Palladians are one of the best groups of soothsayers that you'll find. They tell you everything you want to hear and get all the excitement going in you. And they also know how to pitch frequencies to get your emotional body to respond, to create endorphins in your brain to make you feel happy, happy, joy, joy, that kind of stuff. So it feels like really great. Oh, read a book and, oh yeah, you're charged. Yeah, I feel great. Yeah. Except they also do the channeling where they're getting into the DNA template and trying to, their race is trying to do the same thing the other Anunnaki races are doing, which is take over this particular gene code, race strain, just like they did with the people of Procyon. What happens when a whole race is literally pushed out of its own racial gene code because the code is reversed, is the consciousness that would have normally been manifesting through that race gets stuck in the dimensional fields in the time matrix and has to be hosted out or it gets stuck here. So we're part of this project. You have to be careful with Palladians. Any Palladian channel, anything that's like, people are saying they're channeling Palladians because that's like Broadcast Central. That and Nibiru are like Broadcast Central as far as the channeling. It's like, where are the satellites that are broadcasting the channeling movement? Well, most of them are on, in the Pleiades and in Nibiru. But the Palladians are aggressively infiltrating people through the channeling movement. They're seducing. They're using seduction of the sweet channeling stuff and all that. And they're presenting themselves as our buddies, as usual. They're presenting themselves not only as our buddies, but as our genetic relatives, which they are, because they still have a similar human gene code now that they stole it from the Procyones. So, but they don't tell you that. So it's just wise. This is why we say nothing against channeling. But in this time frame, right now, interdimensional communication is a much better way to go than channeling. It's also a much better way to go in general, because you don't need to channel once you know how to do interdimensional communication, which is simply doing the same thing through telepathy, through your Maharic seal, so nothing is going to come between you and your avatar self. Okay? Alrighty, let's see.
You mentioned about dolphins?
Yeah. Yes.
What is it with the dolphins here on Earth? Are they here to actually help out?
Depending on which group you're talking to.
Dolphins themselves.
You know the dolphin movement that's happening? Did you ever notice that? And it's usually connected with things like, I don't know if the Michael people are into dolphins, but there's whole areas of those guys. It was, yeah, okay. Hertalk is too. He has dolphins in his videos and things. The dolphin, it was the original dolphin people were a brand of Anunnaki. The original pure strain, the first Anunnaki form that was created, were the Cirrus A bipedal dolphin people. All right, these dolphin people then created smaller versions of themselves on Earth that transmit sonics into the planetary grids, and they have been for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, transmitting sonics into the grids to progressively help keep the reversed Merkaba spin on the planet. I know, but I like dolphins. However, there's a whole other group of dolphins that were not even out of that matrix at all. They were not created out of that matrix. They believe they were created out of the Brahmarama matrix that has the other cetacean things. So there are groups of them that aren't associated with Anunnaki at all, which is good. They're the ones that will work with people in healing and those kind of things. But so are some of the other ones now, because there'll be an impulse to do this so they can get into people's biofields. They'll do physical healing while they're making sure your Merkaba stays reversed. So it depends. It's just like looking at a person. Just because, even if we're all walking around with either Anunnaki faces, draconian, reptilian faces, or human faces, you still would not be able to tell if that being was working, which agenda they were working, until you got to know the being. And it's the same with the dolphins. It's the same with animals. Something can look alike, but that doesn't mean it is alike. It doesn't mean it holds the same ideas or intentions. So it's not, don't be afraid of dolphins, but just be aware that some of them are being literally run. They're being used by the Jehovian matrix. Now, they're being used in a way. They're very intelligent, but they're not like Jehovian Anunnaki oversouls that are here purposely to do any harm. They're like puppets. So, as we work with planetary grid healing, as we work with getting the Merkaba on the planet set where it's supposed to be, back to its divine blueprint, we are progressively helping these type of life forms to be set free from those who are using them as puppets, so they can evolve back into their own type of Christos blueprint. So we're helping the dolphins. They're helping to heal in certain ways. Some of them are. Others are actually helping the other agenda without meaning to. What we're doing will help them all come back into the divine blueprint so they're not used anymore in those ways. And there's lots of other animals that are used in those ways. It's really heartbreaking, because it's more heartbreaking when you really realize humans were created with a part of our commission, our creation commission, was to take care of the other life forms that were in smaller form than us, recognizing there are pieces of God that might need a little more help along the way to get back to where they were in full expansion. we were the custodians and keepers. We were the ones who were supposed to help them in their evolution, the other animal forms. And at this point, when you see what's being done, the animals are being used, just like people can go to a workshop and get a bioenergetic field attachment in their astral field that they don't have. Well, if people can have that happen, and we have the amount of awareness in our bodies that we have, imagine what can happen to animals where they have smaller DNA templates. They still have biofields. They can be used, and they can literally have consciousness projected right in them to make them do things. They can be used to attack people and those kind of things. And when we're working with the planetary grid frequencies and bringing the divine blueprint back in, we are progressively helping the plants and the animals and the minerals and everything to have a space here where they can finally anchor or begin to pull in their original divine blueprint. Okay, well, it's getting later. Okay. The new stuff that's coming through on the Canadian grids. So let me fast forward here then. Yay. Okay. And we'll probably put these up as a reminder. Okay. You know what? Let's just whip through these really, really fast, just for the visual reminder. Yeah, I'll just whip through them real fast. So this is like the crash course review to just like reactivate this in your brain. Right? Not that. Okay, this. Yeah, I'll do that later, that one. Yeah, remember, we have 15-dimensional time matrix, those 5 harmonic universes. Dimension 1, 2, 3, harmonic 1. Dimension 4, 5, 6, harmonic 2. Dimension 7, 8, 9, harmonic 3. 10, 11, 12, harmonic 4. 13, 14, 15, harmonic 5. Okay? Primal sound fields here, source here. This is the basic framework of interdimensional structure that we're working with. The structure is it's formed by units of consciousness called part of Chi, part of K, and part of Cum that build up to form chelons that build up to form progressively more complex structures of scalar wave, standing wave grids. It is the scalar standing wave grids. All right, we can go on to the next one real fast. So any of the technologies that we are working with, they are scalar wave technologies. Scalar waves are standing columnar waves that flash off and on at different intervals of speed. All right. Now, cosmic structure. This is where you have one 15-dimensional matrix like that. These are how they cluster as far as within the mind of Source. All right. You would have in the primal sound fields. The primal sound fields would be this unifying area here. You have all of these sets. There are 24 total, or 12 full sets of 50-dimensional matrices. You have one, and it's parallel. So these are parallel. This would be considered a parallel universe. This is one universe time matrix. This would be its parallel. This would be the parallel of those two. These are considered adjacent to each other. So we have parallel universes, adjacent universes. It's not just us alone in our 15-dimensional time matrix. And again, we're only in one harmonic density of that 15-dimensional time matrix. Every perceivable amount of outer space that they're finding out there is in density 1. So you can imagine the scope of the hologram or the holographic format that the universe is created on, or the cosmos is created on. Now, within each 15-dimensional time matrix, this is one harmonic universe. Within 3 dimensions, one harmonic universe. Within one harmonic universe, there are time continua. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 primary time continua in each, or continuums, but it's continua, in each harmonic universe. So each one of these has a set of these time continua. They're like major flash line sequences, the flashing on and off of specific scalar waves that our consciousness on a global level, every consciousness that's on the planet or that the planet is formed of, literally will cycle through these patterns of flashing off and on. If you look at scalar waves, like light bulbs, like I've talked about before, where they flash on, like when you turn on the switch, and then they flash off and when you're turning the electricity off, well, that is called a flash line rhythm. These are a flash line sequence. Each cycle of the time continuous are a series of rhythms of how those lights flash off and on, how those scalar waves flash off and on, how your consciousness flashes off and on, progressively starting with D1 frequencies, picking itself up until it reaches the speed of D3 frequencies. This is how we accrete into matter, literally. Now these are actually happening at the same time. We actually have parts of our consciousness stationed in each of those 6 time continua within each of these cycles. But it gives us a linear progression where this life would appear to lead to this life cycle to this one, this life cycle to this one, this to this one, this to this one. The planet has these type of continuum too. It gives you the linear progression of time from one point to another, appearing to move forward into the future, even though time is a scalar grid where it's literally all happening at the same time. It's just all different rhythms of flashing off and on that allow you to perceive what is one reality field that appears to start here and end at another place. So these are time continua, and there are 6 within each of the harmonic universes. Okay, can we go to the next one now? We don't need that one. We covered that one before. Enough. That one too. I'm going to get into the time stuff.
Time cycles.
Yeah, this one's good. On a larger scale, okay, I'm going to have to lift it up a little bit for this one once we get there. On the larger scale, in a 15-dimensional time matrix, each of the harmonic universes literally represents a larger time cycle, and within that time cycle there exists the 6 time continuum. So remember, in each of these you have a set of 6 time continuum, which are progression lines that your consciousness follows to experience linear manifestation and the ability to grow and expand in linear manifestation. Each one of these has a set of those, and each one of these collectively, each set of those collectively represents a time cycle. Cycles are bigger than continuum. Right? A time continuum is a smaller element of a larger time cycle. There are planetary time cycles, there are personal time cycles, planetary time cycles, galactic time cycles, universal time cycles. These here, the time cycles here, these are harmonic time cycles. So every universe has 5 primary harmonic time cycles. These are directly connected to our stations of identity as well. If we've studied Cathara, we know that in this 15-dimensional structure, we have here our incarnate identity focus and several incarnations taking place simultaneously. We also have our soul level of identity here. We have our oversoul level of identity stationed here, our avatar stationed here, and our rishi level stationed here, and our ascendant master levels out in the primal sound fields. So all of these parts of ourselves are experiencing reality in different time vectors, at a different time rhythm, all at the same time. As we begin to do the process of spiritual integration, which allows us to be able to run the primal life force currents that come down from the higher dimensions, as we begin to integrate, we are literally opening our perceptions up to the rest of ourself. At some point, you become aware of yourself as a we. I used to have a problem with that. I used to refer to myself as we all the time, and people look at me really strange, and I think I'm kind of like a split personality or something, which no, it wasn't that. Once you even get this far, where you get full 6-strand activation on a consistent level, where your 6 strands are always activated, you'll be able to perceive literally 2 harmonic reality fields and all the incarnations within them. So you'd find yourself as a number of different people, and you know that you were all of them, and you could all communicate. It was like your consciousness, your point of focus in the present moment, each of your present moments, would actually intersect with each other, so you could talk to each other through direct cognition, and you could look out through each other's eyes. So it's a really fascinating thing to begin the growth process of what does it mean to do spiritual integration? What does it mean to get your avatar up here into your body down here? It means progressively expanding your consciousness back to what it originally was and still is up here, to where all of the action taking place in all of these time fields becomes simultaneous to your perceptions. Now, it's interesting when it first starts, because at first you don't just like bang and there it is, you're aware of all this stuff. At first, it's when you start to even integrate the D4 and D5 perceptions, when you start to get astral perception and you're aware that your astral body is waking up and you're awake in your astral body, it can be difficult to keep focused here. People have noticed, I'm sure, that we smoke cigarettes. We don't endorse smoking cigarettes, but it's one way to really quickly lower your frequency enough to get you back in body. Because when you get into particularly processing or trying to communicate data of the higher frequencies, your consciousness goes up and up and up, and I'll start seeing, like the D4 level, And this level starts to become invisible to me because I need to expand my gene code more. The planetary grids have to expand before we can fully expand our gene code. But as we expand our gene code, we get the ability to hold this simultaneous focus all at the same time. But that's not the first stage. The first stage of spiritual development actually takes place while you're sleeping, where you start to begin with just becoming aware of dream pieces, or what people would call dreams. Now, most people can do that. Most people just have had that since they were small. Some people don't, and if you don't, that's okay. That means that you're dreaming. You're just not bringing it through into memory, into conscious memory. That's all. We all dream. Now, there are levels of dreaming, and after you go through a certain level of frequency in dreaming, dreaming takes you, your consciousness is moving from its focus here up into here and in the higher fields. And the higher you go, the harder it's going to be to remember when you bring it down here. Because if you want to remember what your consciousness knew in what we call the dream state when it was stationed in D5, you would have to activate minimum the 5th subharmonic in each of the 3 lower strands. To get the whole memory, you'd have to have 5th strand DNA template activation to literally chemically hold that information in your body so you can perceive it while you're focused in your body. So there's a progression of what your consciousness will do as you begin the DNA activation process and the spiritual integration process. You'll start with subconscious dreaming or unconscious dreaming where you don't know you're dreaming. Then you'll go into a place where you start to have little fragments of dreams maybe, and it can frustrate you because some people, like, I've met a few people who say, I've never dreamed in my life. They just don't remember yet. After a while, there are things you can do when you run the D12 frequency that will progressively, just even the Maharic seal technique alone, will help you to begin opening the dream state. Now, once you go past just, wow, I had a dream last night and I remembered at least that I had a dream. I don't remember what the dream was, but I remembered I had a dream. You go from there into beginning to get fragments of dreams. And usually they're very jumbled at first because there's several levels of simultaneous perception taking place in the consciousness. And it will be hard to sequence them in the DNA at first. So you may have the same dream repeatedly, but it'll take a little while before you'll get the sequence on what the heck it meant. It may come back 2 months later and you have the whole pattern assimilated. So there is where you'll remember a dream that you actually had 2 months before. So there's a process of the DNA catching up with what the consciousness is doing to be able to bring the information back to you while you're focused in your chemical body. Because the chemicals literally are carriers of the electrical information, the digital information that is storing the memory of the dream. After you go through the point of where you can dream somewhat regularly and you know you're dreaming, you get to a point, or you know you had dreamed. Then you get to a point where you wake up in the dreams, where it's called like waking dreaming, where you wake up in the dream, lucid dreaming, I think they call it, and you become aware that, wow, I am awake in the dream state. And you start to realize, wow, I can do stuff here. I can move the dream. I can make the dream do things. And that's when you realize, like nightmares, you can command them away at that point, where you can change them or say, all right, what is your lesson here? Tell me, because I'm really sick of this experience. Right? You become aware of lucid dreaming to a degree, and it won't happen all the time, because your whole consciousness is very busy helping you to get your consciousness embodied with all sorts of different DNA activations and clearings and stuff. So you may go through a period